The wait has come to a close. It's been 734 days since the last time the Open Wheels 500 was out on track. But it's back and it's bigger than ever before. Welcome along everyone to the 2022 Open Wheels 500 mile race here live on RaceSpotTV. So excited to have you all along for the ride as we head back to the racing capital of the world. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, joined alongside in a three-man commentary booth by Lewis McLeod and Joey Tebbin. And Lewis, I mean, you and me, we've commentated on our fair share of 500-mile races. But there's something different about when there's just 3 attempts in qualifying and the pressure is truly on.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting one. The race ahead of us, obviously 500 miles is a race that we've all become accustomed to, but the idea of getting onto this track after all of the work that has built up to this moment, there is a lot of pressure on a lot of shoulders out there, and we're in for an exciting race.
It is the culmination of a 2-week celebration of the traditions of the month of May, but this time displaced to the month of November. Joey, you were alongside myself back on November 5th when we kicked things off with the Open Wheels Grand Prix. Adam Crane coming out on top. What fun we had. A caution that really mixed things up, even though the race was looking mighty spicy before then.
Yeah, Adam Crane, as you mentioned, couldn't be coming into this week with a higher head on his shoulders. He really wants to go 2 for 2. He wants to do the month of November double. But there's a lot of drivers with stories to solve from the Open Wheels GP a couple of weeks ago. A couple of drivers who had to come down pit lane with penalties. A couple of drivers who were taken out. A couple of drivers just trying to redeem themselves, like Brandon Treno. There's a lot of stories to settle.
It's going to be a lot of fun for what is a grueling race. Lewis, you and me were kind of talking about the fact that maybe it is not an endurance race technically, but it is a long one. It will take its toll. We'll start with 5 pace laps to get the grid formed up in a 3-wide flying start. The 2019 Open Wheels 500 mile race winner Michele Costantini piloting a Corvette GT1 car as our pace car. Now, the fuel window anywhere from 30 to 34 laps. Tire set's not really a factor, but if you use a lot at the start, you won't have them at the end. Maybe if safety cars come into play, and the question really is, do we get a third winner in 3 runnings of this race, Lewis, or does someone pull the double? Will it be Hugo Olsen here today?
Yeah, I mean, got a bit of work to do in the pack, but, you know, starting from 6th, it is absolutely possible. I think the big question really is who is going to survive, who is going to get to that point. It is survival of the fittest. It is about keeping your nose clean for well over 2 hours, which that in itself is tricky enough, and you've got to focus 1 lap at a time. Don't get too far ahead of yourself, because as much as, you know, some people do slam over racing, as maybe it's not as hard as everyone thinks, we all know that this is tricky, and if you are complacent, if you don't focus, this circuit bites.
It will bite. And Joey, I mean, you, like me, are a big fan of American open wheel racing. What kind of expectations do you have in store for today after what was a very intriguing and dramatic qualifications weekend that ultimately saw the 2022 iRacing Indianapolis 500 race winner Christian Steele missing out on the race here today?
The fact that Christian Steele missed the race, it just tells you that anything can happen in Indianapolis, and not to use a cliche from Murray Walker, but it usually does. So it's impossible to predict what's going to happen, and I'm focused, frankly, on some of the drivers who are new tonight, because there's a dynamic in the field. A lot of experienced drivers, of course, a lot of previous winners, and also a lot of rookies doing this race for the first time, some of whom are actually new to the IndyCar altogether. So all of those are going to meet in the middle, and experience usually is rewarded at Indianapolis. But as I said, anything can happen, and could we get a rookie winner by the end of the day?
Part of being here at the racing capital of the world for this month of November is honoring the traditions that go into making the Indianapolis 500 so great. Let's start with the playing of the American national anthem. And of course, we are delighted to be back home again in Indiana.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still burning bright through the sycamores for me. The new moon hay sends all its fragrance through the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, how I long for my Indiana home.
The wait is over. We are ready to go racing for 500 miles here in Speedway, Indiana. It's time to run you down through the starting grid for the 2022 Open Wheels 500-mile race. We'll start from the back, and two alternates make their way into the field. Craig Forsyth and Evan Adams just missed out a week ago, but disappointment turns around. They'll be alongside Dylan Freckleton, the last of the qualifiers on a dramatic bump day of qualifications. Two Team Watson Racing entries, Josh Tucker and Nagisa Yoshikawa line up alongside Mitch Welker in the All-American iRacers with Project 2 entry. Moving forward through the grid though, the last of those that qualified on Sunday, Jason Brophy with some work to do, along with Matt Hollabaugh, who just squeaks into the field, along with Andrew Marquez in the Alcantech NHR with Skowers entry. Row number 8 sees David Porcelli in the satellite racing car, along with the privateer of Hamilton, Akabwezi, and then Kevin Burrell in the Team Watson racing car. Row 7 sees Shane Cooden, Adam Crane, and Brian Carey, and we'll continue to scroll through what is an electric field of cars. On row 6, the hyperstar Brendan Lichtenberg sees AJ Musselman as well as Marco Brazil, all in that 227.3 mile an hour bucket over the course of the 4-lap runs. Then the King of Chins, the 2018 iRacing Indianapolis 500 winner, sees Seb Alexander and Alexander Van der Sant alongside as they roll on row number 5. Almost inside the top 10, it's Powerslide Motorsports, Kinsella and Bennett all in green, resplendent with Rashad Craig, who impressed in his qualification run, his rookie appearance going very well. Fast 9, Alexis Newsom, Adam Blocker, and Jacob Oster make up stalwarts in the Lionheart Series. They will look to try and work their way forward to challenge a second row of drivers, which includes the defending race winner Hugo Walson, the always impressive Jesper Orman, and Robert Malechka, who curiously may just have missed the start of the race. Then the front row, Christopher Demerit loves the outside line. What can he do? Right on the outside groove on the opening row. The king of the bricks, Brandon Treno, thought he had done enough for pole, but in the final 20 minutes on Saturday qualifying, it was Phil Kraus that backed up pole position in the month of May with another pole position this time for the Open Wheels 500-mile race. Lewis, a strong field of cars, and I'll put you on the spot right now. Who do you think comes out on top here?
Now, you know me, I do like myself a bit of Phil Kraus, but I don't think it's going to be Hugo Olsen. I mean, don't get me wrong, 6th place is not too far back. Absolutely can win from there. But I've got to say, Brandon Treno, 2nd spot, has had a bit of disappointment around here recently. I think this is the race to bounce back, to march forward, to take victory. I mean, he's the king of bricks for a reason. We know how good Brandon Treno is around here in races like this. I think he's going to be on top at the end of the day.
And so you can see the field is getting ready to go. Had a couple of cars have some issues, and I think are now trying to form themselves back up, but I think it's already too late. So the starting formation has been rejiggled slightly, and you'll have a few cars moved up a handful of grid positions. Joey, though, in terms of the race itself, we've got a interesting complexion. The first time that we're here at this brand new scan of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, we've already seen a couple of changes in qualifying with how things have gone in terms of pecking order back to the month of May, and now it changes as well when we head in to the race conditions when dirty air becomes a factor.
And you have to imagine that a lot of these drivers who are on the bigger teams, they've been in the practice sessions with each other, they've been running with each other on track, so they know how to run in dirty air. They've practiced their race running, they've been in open practice sessions with whoever else, they've been in the open Indy sessions and the official races. There's a lot of drivers here who have a lot of practice on this specific scan, so I don't think anybody will be especially rusty. But it's 500 miles at Indianapolis. It is always difficult, and you're always a little bit jittery once that pace car pulls off for the first time.
Yeah, you can see they're all still trying to figure this one out as we get ready. A bit of a messy 3-wide, if we're being honest. Corvette GT1 pace car, nice to have that back out at the front of the field, of course, as our manual pace car driver, Michele Costantini, the 2019 winner of this race, will get ready to roll. Now, Lewis, you and myself, we've already talked about racing for about 3 and a bit hours, so we're going to have to do that now once again. Yep. But I think we're looking forward to this one because we love a bit of high-speed thrillers, and that's what Indianapolis is, trying to survive.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost always one of the most exciting races on the planet. I mean, it's a great track for it when it comes to an oval race. I know it's obviously more of a rectangle, but still, it's unique in style, and obviously this style of racing, it doesn't get faster. Unless we took these cars around Daytona or Dega, it doesn't get faster than this. It is a huge thrill ride from start to finish. Always very, very exciting. But again, it's always full of drama as well. When you can't get too involved in the moment, 3-wide start on that race down towards the first corner, we know it's always super, super risky, and you've got to get through it cleanly.
Yeah, you bring up 3-wide. I was trying not to bring this up when it came to the fact that Brandon Traynor and Phil Krause are starting next to each other, but Joey, that of course a 3-wide situation that took out Michele Costantini and Brandon Traynor in the opening, what was it, 10 laps of the month of May. There surely are still some tensions to be lingering after that.
Yeah, both of those drivers are definitely thinking about that. I think the driver who's probably thinking about it the most is Christopher Demerit on the outside, because he doesn't want to get involved in any of that sort of situation. But these are very, very smart drivers, I know. They know it's a 500-mile race. You know that if you send it 3 wide into turn 1 on lap 1, you're probably not all 3 of you going to make it out of there. So I have to imagine we'll see some sort of organization out front, and it might actually be better in the early stages of the race to just drop back and run in second if you're Brandon Traynor.
So Lewis has already predicted one race correctly. Joey, I don't think I asked you for a prediction, so very quickly, who do you think comes out on top?
J.R. Hildebrand. No, it's Hamilton to Caboese, the rookie. He's been driving the IndyCar for like 2 months, I think. He's my pick. Why not?
So here we go. This is going to be a fun one. Back on track for the first time in over 700 days. The pace car has cleared itself off. It's Phil Krause, Christopher Demerit, and Brandon Traynor on the front row of the 3-wide formation as we are ready to run for 200 laps. For the open wheels 500-mile race. Qualification weekend was tense enough. The week of preparation has led these drivers to this moment, the start of racing once more at the racing capital of the world. We're racing for the open wheels 500-mile race. As it tends to be with 3-wide start, it's nice and tidy as they single file themselves out. But of course, dirty air will be the factor now, and track position must be made up at this point in time, Lewis.
Yeah, Brandon Traynor instantly taking over the race lead, coming down into 3. Phil Krause picking it up and understanding what was going on. These guys are experienced enough. They're not going to fight it too hard at this early stage. Hugo Olsen, though, 6th up to 4th. Now, obviously, it would be really 5th up to 4th, making up a single spot on that first lap, catching the slipstream in the back of Demerit. It's
a great start through the field. Of course, Brandon Traynor will punch in, quote-unquote, the fastest lap of the race. We did, of course, see in the month of May, though, Joey, just how important working together as a team was and fuel saving was. Alexis Newsom was on course for the victory until the cycle of cautions at the end that led to the 1-lap shootout and the 3-wide moment that saw Christian Steele emerge as the winner.
Yeah, this is not technically an endurance race, but it is 500 miles of racing. It's not a sprint race. You do have to think about fuel saving. You do have to think about your strategy so far in advance. We've seen races decided in real life on fuel strategy. Alexander Rossi, willpower in recent years. And it's exactly the same here as Phil Krause is going to take the lead back.
Will swap out back and forth at the front over and over again. That is without a shadow of a doubt. Now, one man who's got a lot of work to do by virtue of actually missing the start initially. Robert Malechka had to start from the back of the pack. He's already up into 27th position, but there's a lot of work for him still to do, Lewis.
Yeah, considering he started from the back, already picked up quite a few spots. Like I said, it's going to be a long afternoon. But, you know, you've just got to keep at it, keep working through. It was originally slated to start from 4th, just as you said, and still going to pick through a couple. Already going to the high side there of Jason Broken to pick up another spot and has a better launch. Was there someone from the background?
I think Craig Forsyth. Yeah, and that's big damage. Now, Forsyth will immediately take the toe to pit lane. Caution does not fly. Joey, now that's an unfortunate end to the day for Craig Forsyth, who did come into this race as the second alternate with 2 withdrawals just last night.
Yeah, it's very unfortunate to be out this early, and I hope I didn't just curse Matt Hollabaugh by misidentifying him there. Hopefully that's not a jinx for the future. But you don't want to be the guy who goes out 3 laps early, but you also don't want to be the guy who brings out the caution first, so it could have been far worse for Craig Forsyth. He crashed in the best possible location.
Yes, close enough to pit lane that he didn't have far to go, and it's just dirty air, a mountain of it as well, Lewis. It's something that we are so familiar with.
Yeah, I can't get super tight turns in from the midpoint, but you see there it's kind of almost like it just snaps in the front, and it's like, hey, you are going straight up into that barrier in the Exeter 4. Easily done, easy mistake to make, and it's one, like you say, it's why you've got to keep focused around here. Complacency is the enemy. Demeric now takes the race lead from Brandon Trainos, who's moved from 3rd to 1st. And we have our 3rd leader around the Indy 500.
And crucially, it is now a Team i5G/Apex Racing Team 1 and 2, with Phil Krause demoted to 3rd. Not the worst place in the world to be, though, if we're being totally honest, because now Phil Krause will be able to save the most amount of fuel as our defending race winner has a few little nervy moments with his internet connection. Joey, let's talk about weather, though. It's similar to what these drivers experienced in May, however, with the added complication of dynamic weather that will be constantly shifting around.
And it is partly cloudy. You can see a couple of those nice Indiana clouds in the sky. They're not too big. They're not going to be covering up the track too much. But 46 degrees Celsius on track right now. For all of you in America, that's 115 degrees Fahrenheit. So it is definitely, it's pretty hot on the track right now. We've seen hotter, we've seen slicker, but it is very, very hot. That doesn't always bode the best for the racing. That means the tires are going to fall off a little bit more, and it's going to be a little bit more easy to get stuck in that dirty air behind the drivers ahead. But up front, they're having no trouble passing each other.
Swapping back and forth like a metronome for the time being. Jesper Orman impressed us in qualifying, and this is, I think, one of the few events where we do see the independent teams kind of take a bit of a center stage, Lewis. Dylan Freckleton, for example, the story of that 313, a privateer that's now made the field, I think, at least in 2 races of this Open Wheels 500, if not in 3. But Jesper Orman broke onto the scene in 2020 in this event by showcasing what he did by basically himself. He has built a group around him, he has built a team around him now. That team has shown up with, I think, 4 or 5 drivers. They are here to try and win.
Yeah, like I say, great stories, and there's plenty of them. This track, just because of its history and whatnot, even obviously in the world, in the real world, and its history obviously being run so many times, one of the most historic races that we have on the planet, but also even in sim racing and whatnot. Like, it is one that we've been running in sim racing for a very, very long time. Of course, here on iRacing for 13, 14, well, no, 10 years. 12 years. Well, however, I think it's 2010 was the first proper one, but you know, it's been running sim racing countless times elsewhere even before that, and because of it, it has that history, it has that allure, and that's what creates some great stories, which we'll have plenty more to speak of over the next few years, just of new drivers that challenge themselves with a race like this, that use this as a stepping stone to get them into either the IndyCar scene or even just the oval scene generally. And this is where, for some people, the journey begins. For others, it really is the climax of that journey.
Yeah, you know, and it's funny you say that. We have a rookie class led this year by Brandon Traino and Phil Krause, which feels unfair to the rest of the rookies because can basically guarantee which way the rookie title is going. It's probably going to one of those two. Let's talk, though, about Mitch Welker for a moment here, Joey, because one driver that I think was quite disappointed heading out of the Grand Prix, showed amazing speed, and then qualifying weekend rolls around, first run on Saturday, smacks the wall, and then has to watch everyone else go while he built up confidence in himself, went early Sunday morning and locked himself into the field.
Yeah, there's been enough setbacks this month for Mr. Mitchell Welker that he might as well get a good result here tonight. He kind of needs that to jump back from everything else that's gone wrong this month. But I guess it hasn't gone all wrong. He did make the field after all in that clutch lap on that second run. He did what he needed to do to make the field, and he's just riding back there with his teammate Matt Hollabaugh, who is a pretty good driver to be running behind. I'm sure they're both planning out their strategies, and they're thinking about alternate ways to march their way forward, because they're stuck in the mires of the pack right now in 27th and 28th.
They got Evan Adams as well, one of the other alternates that ended up making the field. It's not all doom and gloom if you just miss out. You've got to make sure you are ready and around. This is the battle for 18th spot. Adam Crane, our Open Wheels Grand Prix winner, sees AJ Musselman. And Joey, how do we say his name, sorry?
Akabueasy. Hamilton Akabueasy. Tune in for PRL Open Wheel Night on Thursdays on RaceSpot, and you'll see all sorts of Hamilton Akabueasy stuff.
Made sure we got the plug-in for the PRL, the voice of the PRL there. Early in this race, but we're coming to 10 laps officially in the books. It is still Traino and Demerit that, of course, will go back and forth. And we were talking about paint schemes with the DNLS race earlier, Lewis. I must say, Brandon Traino, I love Apex white and blue, but white and red is so much nicer.
I like it. I think it looks very fancy indeed. An alternate livery, again, going to lose the lead going down into 3. Demerit getting it once more. Like I say, switches at this point, they're all basically, it's expected, you're saving fuel and whatnot. You don't, I think that's the critical thing to remind people. Obviously, I'm sure everyone who's watching knows you've watched a fair share of Indy 500 related stuff and general IndyCar. You don't really want to lead too much, right? Being in second's not a bad spot. Yeah, sure, you might burn out your tyres a little bit, but you will look after the fuel tank a lot more. That is going to be critical in this race by extending it further and further and further, and potentially shaving off enough laps that later on you might save yourself an extra trip down pit lane.
They are starting to break away, albeit slightly, from Phil Krause. We'll have to see exactly how much they pull away. Craig Forsyth does look like a DNF, unfortunately. He was scrambling to make it back in time to be a part of the field, regardless of his status as an alternate as of last night. An unfortunate end, but a good experience, I'm sure, for him. Someone we usually see in fixed setup competition in the Lionheart suite of series, so nice to see him taking that challenge forward. Marco Brazil, Brendan Lichtenberg fighting back and forth here for 14th spot. And I don't know about you, Joey, because I know you're on the east coast of the US, so it's not so early in the morning. About 5 minutes before we went live, I remember feeling super tired. I am suddenly energized just because we have speeds of 220 miles an hour and we have Indy cars around IMS.
And I'm sure Marco Brazil has been energized by this race start as well. He was one of those drivers who kind of waited quite a while to join the session. He was waiting until the last possible moment, but that's the sign of a driver who is very, very confident in his abilities at this racetrack. That's a driver who's comfortable in this race. He didn't need to get in the session early. He didn't need to shake off any jitters. He joins the session, he gets in the car, and he's ready to go.
Yeah, Marco's not someone that has jitters, if we're being totally honest. He is very much someone who is there to show up and put on a show. Really hasn't broken up too much right now, which is a good sign. You've got a gap of over a second, basically, outside of Andrew Kinsella and Rashad Craig, as Josh Chin works on the back of that 419 machine. Lewis, let's try and answer this question then. What actually is an endurance race? Because I don't think we really came to a conclusion on this earlier today.
I think it really, again, we'll go back to... It depends on what style of race it is. I think that's the important thing. As in, like, is it a single driver race or is it is it an oval race? Is it what is the style of the race? And you've got to then treat it in terms of its own style. For example, the Coke 600, right? That, when it comes to oval terms, that's an endurance race. It's a solo endurance, and it's a proper endurance. And I'd say, the Indy 500, when it comes to oval terms, it's certainly an oval endurance, because it's definitely not a sprint. We can all agree on that one. It's, like I say, you've got to treat it in your own categories. When it comes to oval terms, this is absolutely up there. And like, so
stealing my answer now.
Yeah, I am. Too right. like I say, it's all the mentality that comes into it, right? And you've got to it's about how you would drive the race. You've got to treat this as a driver like an endurance race, i.e. you're not going for it on lap 1 to try and get past every single driver on the grid. You've got to play it like an endurance. Treat it as if you were on the first laps of a 24-hour race. Pick your way through one at a time if you get the spaces there. Was that Crane that was out right by the wall?
I think it was. By the way, I'm very disappointed. You had a lap or so to comment on the fabulous facial hair of Kevin Burrell, and you just chose not to. He was so kind as well to give us the look on board. Here's side by side as Akabuezi, close enough hopefully, got around Seb Alexander with confidence, and now Marco Brazil does look like he's struggling. He is someone that likes less downforce on his car. Adam Crane blew right past him, Joey.
And Marco washes up very, very high in turn 1 there. I wonder if he was almost not expecting to be as much in the dirty air as he was, because he turned in for turn 1, and that car was not very happy. Maybe he needs to turn the weight jacker up a little bit, but Marco Brazil is definitely struggling with quite a bit of understeer right now. Let's see into turn 3 if it's similar. He's got a little bit more of a gap with Adam Crane this time, so he should have an easier time, but even then, on the exit of turn 3, he's still washing up a little bit.
He's tried to trim out a little bit, and this was one of the topics we had during qualifications weekend, the fact that the Indy Alliance Racing team actually threw a bit more downforce on the car. It's counterintuitive, but Lewis, even when you're racing at 220 miles an hour around this track for just 16 corners, when the tires get so hot, anything that you can do to help them out can be very, very beneficial.
Yeah, and like I say, you've got to play the long game. And stints, around 30 laps and slightly above. You've got to look after the tyres for quite a long period, realistically. I know you wouldn't say that, typically being on your road tyres is being very long, but in racing terms, that is quite a while. Still side by side. I mean, this is a little bit sketchy between the two, but finally Akabuezi does manage to complete the pass. Brazil out wide once again. I mean, he's, like you say, absolutely struggling. Look, he's also joined towards the rear end of this pack, because we are seeing Malechka from the back of the grid, plus 10 or plus 11 now, as once again Brazil's copying the number, but more in a minus fashion.
Yeah, he is really sliding backwards, and I tell you what, the place that you don't want to be, I think, is on the outside of his car, because he is always going to, unfortunately, with how much he is struggling, slide up in your direction. Malechka moving forward with Jason Brophy, who, like we mentioned, missed qualifications on Saturday, so had to start behind those that qualified before him. His qualification run was good enough to get him into the top 10, but nestled in the heart of the pack, it's always difficult to work forward, and you can see just how much separation there is. Adam Crane has well and truly blitzed his way clear of the field. Marco Brazil now going to watch the muscle man to his inside.
Marco Brazil is just kind of a doorstop right now. All these drivers in this pack, oh my goodness, that was as close as Marco's ever gotten to the wall, and it's not going to get any better for him. Look at this train underneath. We ride on board with Jason Brophy now. Tries to peek to the inside of Malechka, almost peeks into the wall on the outside. These guys have to swerve all over the place, because they're all having to check up behind Marco. I'm
just saying, I'm pretty sure I heard wall contact there. I'm not sure about you guys.
I think there was certainly a brush of the wall. I have no, it was very light, and it's as light as you want to get, but I can tell you something, it's certainly not going to help his issue.
Shane Coogan now will slide his way forward, and we're 3 wide at this point in the race. You can tell Malechka is a little bit infuriated with having to drop to the back of the field. He's having none of it, though. He's up into the top 20.
Well, he's been the master of Michigan this season, Arjuna, so he's used to running 3 and 4 wide.
True. No, and Malechka's one who's known for those type of moves, if we're being totally honest. Now Brophy fights alongside with David Porcelli. Oh, this is probably the most nervous I've been in a long, long time, because you can tell they are a millimeter away, or a pixel away, as some of my fellow commentators would say, Lewis, from utter disaster.
Yeah, I got Welker as well on the back end of this. Birrell in the middle of all of it, and Brophy's picked up a couple of spots there. Might have the inside run on Brazil before they've got down into that first corner. Beautiful stuff. But like you say, you've got to keep your foot in. You're desperate to get through right now. You're going to burn a little bit extra fuel just to make your way past, just to get out of the danger zone in that train. But that was smart stuff from Brophy. He set up the move a couple of corners before and managed to get through. Here comes Porcelli straight down the inside as well of Brazil, who is dropping like an absolute stone, is desperate to get off of these tyres ASAP.
Yeah, I can give some insight from within the Powerslide Motorsports camp, but over the last week there's been 2 trains of thoughts. One for those starting maybe further back in the pack, where you can lob on maybe a bit more downforce, And for those running towards the fronts, they are very keen to make sure they have as little downforce as possible. Now, as we check back in with your race leaders, it's not to say that, Joey, you cannot make wing adjustments during your pit stops, but you build wing adjustments into the setup of your car as well. And so the baseline that you have when you start the race ultimately will dictate where you can possibly finish the race.
Yeah, that's why all of these drivers have been, or all of these teams rather, they've been building their setups over the course of the month. You need to have a good setup coming into the race. Because you can do all you want. You can adjust your tools in the cockpit. You can make adjustments in the pit stop. But at its baseline, if you have a setup that's not good at running in traffic, there's nothing you can really do to fix that. You're going to be struggling all day. You might be able to make it a little bit less bad. You might be able to soothe the burning a little bit, but it's never going to stop.
We ride on board with the Worm Man, Jacob Oster. Now I'm trying to figure out what he's got behind. I think the one thing I can confirm is he's got a soldering iron behind him. Not sure what the rest of all of that assortment is, but focus on the face, and you can tell the difference between those riding at the front where it's calm and almost like a procession versus this. Marco Brazil continuing to have to fight. It's now Josh Tucker that's gone on through, and his Team Watson Racing teammate Nagisa Yoshikawa will be the next to try and work his way forward. The problem is at this point, Lewis, you're 28th for Marco Brazil and already at the back of the pack. I'm not really sure how you can recover this race.
No, I think you're losing way too much. You're absolutely right. Yoshikawa to the inside, not able to make that move up into T1. Holliber's also in there, and the next car behind is Evan Adams, and that is the last car on the lead lap after Dylan Freckleton's actually been into the pit lane. And of course we have the retirement earlier on from Craig Forsyth, so you're dropping back to the final real position at the moment. That is how much of a struggle this has been for Brazil. It's desperate to hang on versus everyone, and I get it, but you're asking for trouble, and there it was close once again. There's already been in the contact once as Holliber's going to get through on Yoshikawa.
How deep did he send it into the corner? Not deep enough. Oh, Brazil's hit the wall.
Again.
That's a guaranteed wall strike. You say again, but he's definitely brushed it. That was
I'd still count as a hit.
That was a straight up smack though with the right side tires.
I think he's done.
I think Yoshikawa got in the wall too. Oh, now you can see the effects. There goes Marco. He's fallen all the way back.
Now Evan Adams will try and squeeze on through as well, but he's not going to force the issue. He's got his teammate Matt Holliber to work with as they work out of 4 and to tow maybe into 1. A bit shocked Marco maybe didn't try and get down low, because we are technically already into the pit stop window. And let's not forget that we had those extra pace laps of 4. You wouldn't have been running full mixture potentially, but by no means do you have the full complement of fuel that you would have started with. Front of the field though, here comes Brandon Traynor right on cue.
Yeah, that is the first of the pit calls. No real shocks for him to be earlier than most of the others. He's done a lot of the leading today, of course, with Demerit and Kraus. Kraus dropping back into that, what was 3rd position to get himself into the slipstream of those ahead. But a very early stop from Traynor comparatively to the most, but we are approaching in on that all-important lap 30.
I really don't know how much we're going to see people trying to stretch it this early in the race. My suspicion would be, unless you are Orman, maybe Oster, Van de Sant is one that I would think would be trying to save some fuel as well. I don't really know. More takers though to pit lane this time by, and I think it will be increasingly busy from the front. Demerit showing Joey that pit entry here is not trivial with limited downforce.
Yeah, it's literally caught out the best driver in IndyCar, Scott Dixon, multiple times in the past couple of years. I think Demerit got it slowed down. There was quite a big puff of smoke, but it seems like he has got it slowed down to pit speed, so it shouldn't be a penalty for him. I can only hope. Brings it into his box here, locks it up again coming in, but luckily he's about to get off those tires so he can destroy him as much as he wants. Very nervy moments coming into the pits. He's not going to be the last driver to lock up tonight because you got to practice that. It's not easy.
Do let us know where you're watching from, by the way, if you're joining us live on YouTube. We are following along and you are keeping us entertained, that is for sure. I see a comment about when you hit the wall, you need to just Ross Chastain it. I regret to inform you that these cars do have the new damage model. If you try to Ross Chastain it, you would lose the right side wheels.
Yeah, I mean, Joey did bring it up earlier about JR Hildebrand. I mean, he gave it a good go. Was it 2011? So yeah, I don't think these are the right cars to be doing it. That line is quite far down, and also with 170 laps to go, I wouldn't want to be doing that this early. Alas, these drivers staying out, 170 to go, so it's the end of lap 30. I was going to say we'll see Phil Krausen surely this time by the little bit of leading early on. He comes in pit lane, another big lockup.
Whoa! And Van der Sant with the bigger lockup, but he did get it stopped in time. Drivers were quite curious coming into the race with a drivers' meeting held about 45 minutes before the green flag about what the rules were in terms of being side by side on pit entry. Turns out it's not been a factor, at least so far today. Of course, when you pit here at Indianapolis, it ends up taking just under a lap, so you end up funneling into some sort of traffic, and that very well, Joey, is going to come into the minds of those that can go longer and maybe use the tow to keep speed up.
Yeah, you can keep the speed up in the tow. The other thing you want to make sure you're not doing, though, is you don't want to get stuck in traffic with some of the slower drivers in the field. As Adam Blocker comes in, he almost loses the car on the entry as well. These brake biases, I think they're a little bit further forward than I expect, because we're seeing a lot of front lockups here coming into the pits, but they're all making it work. But some of the drivers at the back of the field who came in, likes of Akabuizi, Alexander, AJ Musselman, they came in at the back of the field. They've gone a lap down. So if a caution came out, they're kind of screwed for the moment.
Yeah, and there's
You'd rather a front lockup than a rear lockup, though, right?
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah. If I was going to lock one side, yeah, rear, you're basically out. You're done.
So Phil Krause, by the way, jumps in front of Christopher Demerit for the time being. We'll see how things cycle out, though, over the course of this exit phase. You talk about the rear lockups. We have seen that. I don't think it was this year, but last year it was like 3 cars that spun on pit entry just because, A, the brakes don't get used that much when you're traveling at 220 miles an hour for 33 laps. But then, again, just teams are trying to play games with the brakes. That is as much as I want to say without getting in trouble without some of my friends in the IndyCar paddock. Everyone is making their trips down to pit lane, though, so Brandon Traynor, Krause, and Demerit, the front row, will cycle still. 1, 2, and 3, albeit shuffled around. Traynor now getting in front of Phil Krause. Behind them, it is Jacob Oster that is going to be rolling off of pit exit, but will filter out at the very least behind Adam Blocker, and more potentially behind even Van der Sant and Orman. Good cycle overall, I think, for many drivers. Hasn't really hurt too many as well, Lewis.
No, spread some gaps out just a touch as Allman does get past Oster. I think, again, just looking at my angle, I do think that Olsen was pretty tight coming up onto the white line between 1 and 2. Of course, not the first one, but the second one. To rejoin the race, it might be a little bit touch and go. The gaps between them, like it's about 6/10 between each of the top 5. That now build themselves a bit of a gap on Van der Sant, and Blocker setting the fastest lap on the previous lap, so looking to really close in the top 5. It could realistically be a top 5 breakaway at this early stage. The likelihood is that is not going to remain.
I think one thing that we will see is, at the very least, Henry Bennett and Andrew Kinsella are going to try and work together to close the 2-second deficit that they have in front of them to Alexis Newsom. The question will be, can Van der Sant and Orman, former teammates, maybe think about working together with a 1.6 advantage up the road to that top 5 breakaway as it stands right now? Swap drafting is something that I think people think is easy. Joey. However, I always remember talking with some of these drivers, and back in May, Traynor let me in on a secret that if it was him and Michele at the front of the field, they were 1/10 of a second faster per lap swapping than any other combination of i5G and Apex Racing team drivers. And so if you are able to figure it out, you are always at an advantage in situations like this when you need to make up time.
It's like ballet. It's like a finely choreographed Indianapolis dance, because if you end up side by side into the corner, if you mistime your switchback, you're just going to be holding each other up. So you have to figure out, how can you time it perfectly? How can you guarantee that you both have cars that are good enough in the dirty air to stay close enough off the corner, to close up here on the straights, and then be clear enough into turn 1 that the driver on the outside doesn't have to race side by side with you or have to completely lift out of the throttle to let you by? Brophy's going to go side by side into turn 1. That looked like a pretty straightforward switch, but even that, you could tell that Brophy on the outside had to lift out of that, and that's not the fastest way to go.
Oh, it's actually quite funny. It's totally off topic, but Lewis, tomorrow we have the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship season finale at Daytona.
We do.
Are you ready for bump drafting?
Oh, I know it's going to be a massive part of it. I'd like to see bump drafting with this, to be honest.
No, you would not.
No, I
would.
would. Just for the hilarious bants. But no, obviously you definitely. I don't want to say you can't do it in this car, but what I will say is you really, 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 really shouldn't. As Trainer will retake over
the Indy Pro 2000 car, Lewis. You can do it in the Indy Pro 2000 at least.
So, I think the main issue here is not even the fact that this car has the new damage model, to be perfectly fair. I think the issue more is just if you hit someone in the wrong way, A, you may end up with damage yourself, but Joey, you can attest to this. It's more a concern for the car in front that they get the rear end pushed in, which is then a mandatory 15-second repair, even if it's really not costing you time.
Yeah, the nose and the rear end, there's like a little point. There's like the square of the gearbox, there's the rounded tip of the nose. You're not getting much help in the bump draft there, but you can actually do that. If we ever do a Freedom 100 style race here one of these months with I guess they're the USF Pro 2000 cars. Now I got to remember the name. You can bump draft in those things. I've done it.
Not allowed.
Solid name.
Yeah, we've done that during the Cup of Nations. Never again. I've decided.
Is it bad? Is it like hard to follow?
Have you not?
No.
There's this image, Lewis,
no.
of at the end of the first lap where there's literally 60-something cars, and they're like all 4 wide.
Nice.
12 rows deep or whatever.
I like the sound of this. It's impossible to commentate on. It's just like there's a group of cars.
And you know your little bugbear about teams having either black or red or white and blue. Yeah, imagine having all the cars with country colors, except because all countries end up having similar colors. You see where this is going?
Oh yeah, no. I had to commentate on a race between Australia and Great Britain as part of an event between Motorsport UK and Motorsport Australia. And there was 20 cars, 10 of which were Motorsport Australia, 10 of which were Motorsport UK, and obviously we had special liveries for the country, not special liveries for independent driver for each individual driver. So it was just 10. Cars in the same livery and 10 cars in the same livery, and I was like, right, this is almost impossible. I was like, how do I commentate on this? So yes,
were they both white and blue and red?
No, because Australia's national colours is yellow and green.
Yes.
Yeah, I was gonna say green and gold. That'd be helpful.
Yeah, green and gold. Yeah. It was definitely a yellow on this. But yeah, so it was fine.
Van der Sant has closed, by the way, onto the back. He has not brought Orman with him, crucially, though, so it's now potentially a 6-car breakaway. Joey, have you ever, I know you enjoy your bants, have you ever tried to commentate on any race involving that Mercedes Formula 1 car where they're basically all in the identical liveries?
No, but I have driven that car a couple times, and it's weird when you watch a replay of a race you've done in an official race, and it's like, oh, is that me? Is that me? Is that me? I don't know, but I can only imagine it gets extremely difficult.
I will say it is a bit of a shame that we've actually lost that ability with the Williams FW31, because we've had that for years, and if we were to have another Cup of Nations, we very much would need that back, because it was bad enough commentating with the country colours on the car. I can't imagine if they were all the same identical Williams livery, having to pick them all apart. Still a long way in this race to go. We've got about 40-something laps under our belts, still 158 to go, indicated in the top left of your screen. It may be now as an 8-car train. Jacob Oster might work with Alexis Newsom to bring her into the mix as well, so I think any possibilities of the 5-car breakaway are not on. And Joey, the weather was something that we touched on earlier. It's gotten warmer since then and is a scorching day right now.
Gonna make me break out the Celsius to Fahrenheit translator here again.
No, because Celsius is better.
124 degrees Fahrenheit here in Indiana. That's probably about the temperature of a tepid pork tenderloin sandwich. So it's not hot by our terms, but it's certainly hot by track temp terms, and it's only getting hotter. The cloud cover has not come in. The track has not cooled down, but we're still seeing pretty solid racing here. The hot air that tends to mess things up in real life tends to be a little bit thicker. It's not doing so here.
Oh, I still remember how warm it was back in May. Fortunately, the one thing about being a person of color like myself is that I have natural sunscreen. I felt very, very bad for the rest of Team I5G who I was with, because they were having to make sure they were caked in it because it was a scorcher come race day. Was not so nice when I landed on Friday. It was spitting with rain. Very different sort of a day. We're checking back in, of course, with the Powerslide Motorsports duo of Andrew Kinsella and Henry Bennett, who have not had Rashad Craig close on them just yet. By the same token, Lewis, they've actually lost ground to the cars in front of them.
I was going to say, not closing in on Alexis Newsom. That gap is remaining around 3 seconds, gone out just a touch. It's not looking so good. They have a couple of switches inside the top 5. Olsen getting past Kraus, and of course the lead being retaken by Trainer. Expect to see quite a lot of switches inside that top 5, top 6. Top 7, top 8, however long that train is now. The thing is, the more that actually join it, right, it's kind of like it almost slows down a little bit because you're only going at the pace of the front 2, right? And what happens is initially you close in quite a bit. Was there a bit of smoke there as well? Was that?
There was, and the yellow is out. For the first time today, we slow things down. Marco Brazil has had an incident. He is already back on pit lane, but the yellow flag is already out. And it comes out at a crucial time, Joey, when drivers will be thinking about the fuel numbers.
150 laps to go or so. That's what it'll be once this caution cycle cycles itself out, and that's some reasonably easy math if you can do 5 30-lap stints, but easy math is not easy when it's that far in advance. I can't say I'm surprised that Marco Brazil was the driver who brought out the caution. I don't say that as a diss, but he's been the driver who's been getting so close to the wall, and yeah, that was closer than he's ever been.
I'm just going to point this out. This should not have been a caution. He's well off the racing surface. Absolutely no danger to anyone. I know there's been a couple of comments about some drivers how the iRacing caution system is too lenient. I feel like this was the other way, Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was an automated one, so it's how it goes. Look, how many times have we had it, right, where you've been doing an IndyCar race just on the official system, and you're sat there and there's been a 4-car crash, and you're like, this is definitely a caution, it remains green. You're like, nope, that's not my ticket back into this race. Suddenly someone breathes against a wall, and suddenly it's boom, it's Yellowtown, and you're like, what? What? Obviously, just one of those things. Fair enough, but yes, I will agree with what Joe was saying. That was always going to happen with Marco Brazil. Had been out wide at T1 and T4, of course, a few too many times, and this time bit the bullet.
Is anyone going to fake out, though? They're all committed. And I think this is one of those magic number laps where they would have been thinking if a caution comes out in this window, we are guaranteed to head down to pit lane no matter what will happen. Going back to the incident with Marco, Joey, I mentioned it earlier, Marco is someone who likes to have less downforce on the car. It's just something that you have to get used to, and it's something that drivers have different preferences for.
And he clearly has a preference for it, but sometimes it just comes back to bite you. And if I'm remembering correctly, he was behind Evan Adams in that replay, so he was getting a little bit of the dirty air, and I don't know, Evan might have ran a different line or something and caught him by surprise, but he was far too quick coming into the corner. He was going into that wall no matter what. So I don't know if we can blame the dirty air there. I think that was just a little bit too much of a send.
The cars roll off. It is demerit from Traino and Olsen now, with Kraus, of course, demoted down to 4th. Blocker, Orman, Newsom, Oster, Van der Sant, and Bennett make up the top 10 as they will catch back up with our pace car driver, who has had to be relatively quiet so far today. Of course, let's give a shout out as well to the one and only Michele Costantini, our 2019 Open Wheels 500-mile race winner. Missed qualifying weekend with an illness, still not feeling 100% well, but well enough to come and join us as our pace car driver, and we do thank him. One thing that, Lewis, at this level of sim racing becomes quite important are not just those in the car, those out of the car as well. And there's quite a few of these drivers that will have spotters and engineers working behind the scenes to try and give a little bit of insight as to what is going on. I know that, for example, Chad Simpson is working on the box of Adam Crane, Mitchell Welker had Mad Mike, as they like to call him, and the private label team Hype Team traditionally have had a real-world top-level motorsports driver in the likes of Tommy Milner being able to help them on strategy.
And I think that's, like I say, it's important to have a trusting voice in your ear, someone that you know's got experience, whether it's in sim racing or real world or whatever, or whether they're even a driver or not. Whatever works, whatever you trust. Someone who's just very quick at understanding what's going on. Normally, especially in sim racing terms, it typically is a driver with decent experience because they've kind of seen it all, and so they understand like how to adapt to certain situations when you need it. But it's about having a trusty voice in your ear, because doing these races, if you are just going to do it just as a driver with no outside assistance, you're just going to use crew chief or whatever, that is fine. It is possible. You can win. But when there is an occasion like you're off strategy with someone, or they've pitted 5 laps, you want to know what's happened. Have they come out in traffic? Are they actually back? Have they gone slow? What's happened? What's the positives? What's the negatives? And you need someone in your ear that can see the full picture to understand fully of what's going on. That's why you have, like I say, a trusted race engineer or spotter.
I was giggling a little bit because I got a message about something that was going on with some other series that Lewis and I will be commentating on tomorrow. 152 laps to go. Lights look to be still on the pace car, at least from this far shot, so at least one more lap. Under pacing, as well, there's a bit of a stack up as drivers try and figure out what's going on. We are going back racing. It's the first caution in a while here in the Open Wheels 500-mile race. Christopher Demerit picks up the throttle, and it's a nice, tidy start through the field. The likes of Malechka looking low early, trying to make up track position, because once again, Joey, you make it up early, you make it up now.
Yeah, I was looking at all the front wings as everybody came through turn 1 there, because there was a checkup at the back of the field. I don't think everybody was completely ready to go racing there, and in these single-file restarts, there always tends to be a checkup at the back of the field, but this is the highest level of IndyCar racing on iRacing, so all the front wings have survived. They've all figured that out. But here we go, early days in the running. Malechka's getting very aggressive, almost 3 wide there through turn 3, and he's going to get to the inside of Adam Crane in turn 4. But he's got Carey ahead of him, who's trying to hold off both of them, and he's got to decide, who do I give the draft to? He decides to give it to Malechka.
Joey didn't have to witness ISOWC Watkins Glen, at least those first 10 laps, when he talks about chaos that these drivers are truly capable of. It's not just Malechka that's taken advantage, though. He's up to 16th. Brophy is up to 18th as well, almost double-digit positions gained. The privateer Dylan Freckleton is up 9 into 22nd spot as well. Phil Kraus and Adam Blocker going side by side. The outgoing Lionheart IndyCar champion, the soon-to-be crowned Lionheart IndyCar champion, and it's Blocker that gets his way on past for now, Lewis.
Yeah, again, tight stuff as you expect on the restarts. Everyone closing in, trying to take advantage. You saw Crane trying to get through on Brian Kerrin. He's actually going to end up losing out to Malechka behind all of this. So a few switches up and down the top 30. Let's just call it top 31. Yeah, basically everyone. They're all switching over a fair amount over this opening part of the lap. There is the confirmation of the Malechka and Crane switch as well. You've got it. It's kind of on the restarts. If you're stuck in that mid pack, it's almost like a now or never. You've had that bit where you've all been separated, and you need to get on with it. Pick up 2 or 3, and then settle yourselves down, and then start picking them up one at a time. It's a bit risky, yes, but if you've got to get on with it, there's no better time.
Left side of the screen, you can see those team logos and the way that drivers and teams will work together. Now, Brandon Treno says Apex Racing Team, but it's really I5G. The one thing that you notice, Joey, Phil Kraus by himself. Jesper Orman by himself, for the most part. Powerslide and I5G, though, have multiple angles to play at this point in the race, and that may be what is important if it turns out to be a fuel-save race.
You never want to be in an island of your own. You can still figure out a way to work together. You can maybe steal a little bit of the draft off of the I5G drivers or the Powerslide drivers if you are an independent just riding around, but it's always more difficult when you don't have a teammate to coordinate with, when you don't literally have somebody you can go talk to and tell them what you're trying to do. You just have to hope that that whatever you're trying to do works out and coordinates with whatever the drivers are doing ahead of you. Phil Kraus is in a little bit of a lonely spot. I think he's hoping that Josh Shin can make a couple of moves and move his way forward and work with them. But even then, they've only got 2 drivers. There's 6 Powerslide drivers in the top 15.
Could have Jason Brophy in the mix as well if he continues to work his way forward, but at the same time, then you'd have Robert Malechka in contention as well. Malechka still not out of the equation when it comes to the victory, you'd have to say. Now Jacob Oster having to fight with Henry Bennett, and for the time being, the green and gold holds on. Opportunity presented for the King of Chins to look to the inside here, Lewis.
Yeah, we know of his experience within this car, within this community. Looks to the inside and kind of backs out ever so slightly, so Henry Bennett's going to be able to hang on quite easily. Got to watch out for Kinsella behind. I know, obviously, we've spoken time and time again about teammates and whatnot. There are a few teams that have basically just large contingents out on the grid, which means if you're a part of one of those, you've normally got a teammate pretty close. That is great for about the next 140 laps, and then you start closing in the checker flag, and then suddenly you have no teammates. Everyone is out there as a sole trader. You're out there by yourself. You're out there fighting for yourself.
Update on Rashad Craig, by the way. He has had a VR failure and looks to be done with the race. And you say, oh, but those are the worst things, the things out of your control, and the things that you will always be worried about the most here at Sim Racing.
Yep, in real life, there's mechanical failures. Lots of Indy 500s in the past in real life have been decided by an engine blowing up or by some part failing. Unfortunately, in the quest for realism in sim racing, we find ways to do that too. Sometimes your internet kicks you out, sometimes your VR dies, and there's not really anything you can do about it. It's just very unfortunate.
The Hyperstar Brendan Lichtenberg in a I5G sandwich with power slide bread. You noticed I stumbled there. Lewis, I was right on top of the situation. Don't you worry.
Thank you. Yeah, no, you've had a long day already. Whilst it is early in the morning, you've been up since what, 2, 3, 3?
Too early. Let's be real.
Too early. It has been. We've already done. Me and Arjuna have already done a 4-hour broadcast, literally about an hour before we came onto this. So it's been a long day. I appreciate the pause and thought there going into the sound. Yeah, I know, because I'd be straight on you.
Yeah, it's just because I hate you and I didn't want to have to deal with you.
That's true. That is true. That's why you invited me to the broadcast. Oh my goodness. You poor guy. Again, another switch for the race lead. Again, it's going to happen quite a bit. They've got it down right now, but they do have to worry. Defending champ this race is sat right behind them, letting them kind of get on with it a little bit and taking some of those beautiful, beautiful fuel numbers.
I think it's important as well that it is Olsen and Blocker up towards the front. Blocker has spent most of the last month or so, to be honest, away from his rig, traveling first for leisure, then traveling to Argentina with Juncos Hollinger Racing as Agustin Canapino did a bunch of demonstration runs. And for anyone who saw pictures or footage for the turnout, my word, we need a race in Argentina, and we need one soon. But I think he landed last night, and when it came to qualifying last Saturday, he actually missed his guaranteed slot from the qualifying draw because his flight ended up being an hour late because of weather conditions. So it's been, as Lewis says, suboptimal for Adam Blocker to get his preparation in for this one. But I go back to 2020, Joe, and I remember that Powerslide Motorsports may not have been the fastest in qualifying, but they showed up with the best car on race day. Yes, Michele Costantini was in the mix as well, but it always had this feeling, this sense, like Hugo and Powerslide were the ones to beat. I don't get that sense right now. I get the sense it's quite equal between I5G and Powerslide.
I'm kind of inclined to agree in this early stage, but also I think I'm Team Hugo right now in that number 1 car, because we haven't really mentioned him much since the start of this race. We've already done 60 laps in this race, which is pretty incredible. They've flown by. Hugo was just kind of riding in the background. Hugo Olsen started a little bit deeper in the field, wasn't especially far back, but he wasn't in third. And over the course of these pit cycles, over the course of these cautions, he's just inched his way forward. And now that goldenrod car is literally right behind the fight for the win. He's just been sneaking his way forward, step by step, and he's in the fight for the win now.
I do feel like it's going to come down to the move in pit stops. I don't think this is going to be a move on track, unless, Lewis, it ends up like it did back in the month of May when we had those cautions after cautions that led to that final lap. Because I know you and me were in the background just going wild at that one lap.
Yeah, definitely in the background. That is emphasis on that one. Like I say, we've had some great races, some barnstorming finishes around here. This one, way too early to tell you. We'll have to wait. you kind of get a vibe. I think we'll get a picture as to roughly how it's going to end, and it's always the blurriest picture that you could imagine over the next sort of like 60, 70, 80 laps as to roughly who's going to be the contenders, who's the pretenders, who's actually going to be involved later on and whatnot. That picture will come. Right now, as drivers, even if you are, like you said, 15th, 16th, 17th, even further back than that, you're sat there being like, this is fine. You still, genuinely, you still might be contending for this race win later on. Just survive this point. Keep your car clean. Keep your car, most importantly, out of the wall. We've already seen 1 or 2 sent into the 2 cars sent into the barrier already today through their own aspirations of pushing a little bit too hard. Don't join that list.
Right on board with Brandon Traynor as they go back and forth. Just saying contenders or pretenders sounds like an album name. Lewis McLeod, when is the debut album dropping?
Next year. It's all remixed. No, it's all just remixed commentary lines from all of us. It's going to be great.
Oh, interesting. I thought you were going to say, you know, like that clip that you did for Audi and Glenn Block. It would be something like that.
Oh, nice. No.
I'm making sure people know that was you.
I know. That video's got like 4 million views.
I know.
I am famous.
Yeah, that's why you're the real world commentator here.
That's why I got. That's why I won the first award, mate.
That's why I'm the defending champion.
No one remembers the second winner, right?
so no
this
one
is like when you hang out with a married couple and they're fighting. I'm scared.
Caution, and it's a big one. It's the 2022 Open Wheels Grand Prix winner. Adam Crane is back on pit lane.
Whilst we're having an argument as well.
I know. It was delightful. It's off of turn 4 once again, so I get the feeling it's going to be somewhat of deja vu. He's a lot closer to Brian Carey. Arcs the corner quite well.
Too low.
Oh, he does hit the attenuator, and AJ Musselman has to go flying.
Yeah,
well
I mean,
done, everybody, for avoiding that. But
I was going to say, when you're one of those cars coming down in the background, you're sat there being like, please don't hit that wall, please don't hit that wall, because as soon as they do, bang, you're straight out into the middle of the road.
Well done from everyone, though, to avoid. Very well handled. And I think the best thing to do is probably to ride on board with the Musselman's perspective and just see exactly what he was seeing from within the aero screen.
that's smart driving, though. He saw where Crane was going. He didn't go to avoid where he was going. He turned to the left where Adam Crane wasn't, and that's how you find the hole. And everybody did very, very well to get through there. But Adam wouldn't have brought the caution out if he didn't hit the attenuator. But the problem is when you're out of control like that, he tried to flick it back. He tried to save it. And, yeah, that darn attenuator, it always seems to bite somebody every year, and it's always a very, very large impact. We're lucky there's not a bunch of body work on the ground, because we'd probably be under red flag for about 10 laps.
Yeah, it's a good thing that the crashes are virtual, so we don't have to send the safety team out there for an extended period of time. So Adam Crane's day will likely come to an end. 33 started, 29 are left running, although all of them are still on the leading lap. We've got 18 or so laps through the stint. I'm assuming everyone comes in this time by Lewis.
Surely. Because the thing is, if you don't pit now, you're essentially gambling that you're expecting a caution fairly soon. Now, we've only had 2 in the opening 65 laps. So, yeah, everyone surely is coming in. There might be a couple staying out there in the background. A few also bounce. So we do have a couple staying out. Interesting.
It's Malechka, Carey, I saw Musselman, and then someone else. Dylan Freckleton will be the other one that has elected to stay out. Joey, what do you think?
I guess you might as well go for a gamble. We're in kind of a weird spot here. 135 laps to go. I'm trying to do the math. I don't think there's a way to evenly split that into even stints. So you're going to have to do one especially short stint wherever you decide to put that. So what I think Malechka and Carey and Musselman and Freckleton are all doing is they're going to continue to extend this stint for as long as possible, hope to get to that like lap 120 mark, and then you can evenly divide the race into 4 more stints, while everybody else, I think, might also have to make 4 stops, but they're not going to have the track position right now.
How bad are the tyres going to be? Because obviously they've done 18 laps on them, right? But then they've cooled. Like, I know it's obviously a lot of heat and whatnot, but they've cooled down. Are they still going to be like pretty awful?
They're going to be bad.
They'll be bad, but I think the question will be how quickly do they get swarmed? Because if they don't get swarmed that quickly, I think it will be okay. By the way, only Robert Malechka could do this, has jumped into a private Discord to say that he thought the race started at noon Eastern in the real world, like what time we threw the green flag, and so that's why he missed the start. I'm just gonna say if he turns up after the race and complains about the fact that he had to start from the back, I'm just gonna say the schedule was on the website, my friend. You missed the start.
All the information was on the task, Rob. All the information was on the task. But he's in the lead. He's doing Juan Pablo Montoya things. He's gone from 33rd to 1st. And I think that 4-car number, that's critical from Robert to Dylan. There's 4 cars up front. If it was just one driver up front, if it was Rob all on his lonesome, he'd be in trouble. But he's got quite a few rear gunners. I think that'll hold everybody back for a little bit. And if we single file out, he should be somewhat comfortable and shouldn't be too worried about Demerit and Treno coming up.
I think the really important thing is that he clearly did not, as we were discussing earlier, Arjuna, he clearly didn't read the rule book. And so for everyone out there, this is what would be classified as an RTFM moment. And if you don't know what that means, Google it.
I'm also glad that you don't know what it means, because boy, do I really know what that means.
yeah, I definitely know what that means. And people really do, they follow it. But Malechka, though, at the front, either way, he's had his issues. He's now leading the race. Obviously not on the same pit stop. He'll have to lead as we'll go green this time. And it's like you say, it's about how quickly he gets swamped. Now, the fact that he's got 3 cars behind him on the same, obviously, level of tyres, if he can stay out ahead of those 2, then it might even itself out just a touch. But yeah, it's not going to be an easy few laps.
I do find it amusing rather, that the +3 that shows against Malechka's name is totally not representative of the race that he's had so far, Joey.
Yeah, just put a 2 next to it. That's right. I wish we had a telestrator. We really need one of those.
I have the yellow pen, but it can only go so far, unfortunately. The idea of a full telestrator, I don't think you could trust me with that. Lewis knows how silly I am.
Yeah, too much so. Very much so. We'd get a lot of things on the screen, which...
Okay, only if Luke Crane was around, because he seems to bring it out of the both of us. Luke, we love you.
So true. 2
cautions now in the books, and these races traditionally have been relatively caution-free. What are we in for now? For gambling that maybe there's more cautions. The green's back out at the racing capital of the world. What will fresh tires do to the 4 that will try and hang on at the front? Freckleton will be the blocker for the 3 that continue to run out of turn number 2, Lewis.
Yeah, it'll be the blocker for blocker, because he's made a move on Treno. Might well make a move on Demerit as well. He's the one that's making it 3 wide. It's Adam Blocker to the inside and the race up towards turn 3. And he might just get past Demerit. He's going to be out on the outside line, picking up a lot of the dirty air there from Freckleton's car. Obviously, Treno straight to the inside as well. Blocker takes over what would be the race lead, those that have pitted, but then Demerit gets the outside run.
Now, though, Freckleton gives a bit of toe to Adam Blocker. Now, Freckleton's just trying to use all the track that he can. Blocker's in a dangerous spot where if he gets pinched, Demerit can help Treno fly his way past. Blocker slides into line, and now Olsen tries to look to the inside of Treno. But again, single file for the top. For the time being, a lap and a half so far, Joey, and the top 4 are still holding on.
I think Robert Malechka and the gang are going to have to send Dylan Freckleton a couple of Christmas cards here, because he is doing so much work for them right now. Demerit's going to get to the inside of Freckleton, so that's going to be that done straightforwardly. Freckleton cannot fight back on the outside there with Demerit on those fresh tires. That was going to be an easy move all the way. Blocker's going to get by. Treno and Olsen, they're all going to get by. But there's critically like a second gap now up to AJ Musselman. And that's quite a big gap for Demerit. I don't think he's going to be able to bring that down before Malechka and Carey and Musselman decide to bring it down pit road on their own terms.
Yeah, we're probably looking at, another 10 laps at the very least before we see them come down. Demerit trying to help his teammate out. It's Olsen, though, that goes the most aggressive. Almost 4 abreast. And Olsen, you can tell, wants to work his way forward. Around the outside, the defending race winner puts a move on the King of the Bricks.
Yeah, that was getting a little too dicey there. 3, 4 wide almost, like you say. A little bit of contact. I'm sure there'll be a wake-up call for quite a few of these, but they didn't realise quite how close they were. I did also want to say that Hamilton Akabwezi, there we go, made a bit of a mistake in T4. Literally missed the wall by about ½ an inch on the exit of T4 on the previous lap. There's another look. I mean, that's scary. It's this bit here.
It was the ping pong. There. Yeah. I tell you what, let's pull it back and let's ride on board with Phil Krause, because Olsen wasn't taking no for an answer here, Joey, I think is the best way to put it.
No, he's getting very, very aggressive. He knows he has a win in the bank. You know, maybe he's thinking, you know, I have nothing I need to prove here. I'm a winner. If I end up wrecking doing this, whatever. I still got a win in the books. But he just barely found the gap there. He's lucky that there wasn't a little bit of the cursed net code. He's lucky that that contact didn't break something, honestly. But they all got away with it. They're all going to be a little bit scared. I think Phil Krause is probably more scared than anybody. And again, he's not getting any solace here. Because look at that train behind him. Blocker's going to get to his inside. Then Van de Sant. And look at that train back to about 18th. They're all coming for him.
It's more frustration, I think, for these drivers still stuck behind Freckleton. Look at the gap that's built to Traino. Blocker lost out to Kraus because of Freckleton, and now continues to see the i5G Apex Racing duo chase his teammate down. It's getting increasingly close to the front, and now Demerit will set his sights on the next car with worn rubber, AJ Musselman in third.
Yeah, going to be closing in, but again, the top two have cleared out about a second of those. There's Blocker to the inside once more on Freckleton trying to get through, and does do so. Van der Sant also through. Whoa, that was a bit naughty.
Yeah, it's getting a little bit nervy here, but this was always the risk if you were Dylan Freckleton, right? Is the fact that you were going to put yourself in a situation, once you started losing spots, Joey, it was only going to get worse from there.
And he definitely did hit the wall there. That was quite a big smack. He's still struggling. He's still all over the place. And there's a right behind him. He checked him up, and I think that was
Lichtenberg, I'm pretty sure. The Hyperstar is stranded, and the caution will fly again. Cautions breed cautions breed cautions. And now, what do you think if you're the three out front?
Yeah, not 100% sure right now. I've got to say, for Lichtenberg, got very unlucky just because of where Josh Chin was trying to avoid Freckleton, as we'll see it once again here. So you'll see Chin move down just ever so slightly right over the nose of Lichtenberg. I mean, he's lucky that he wasn't collected by anyone. Everyone reacted very well. I've got to say, though, I genuinely feel bad for Freckleton, because it was that incident between himself and Van der Sant going through 1 and 2. Van der Sant just pushed him straight in the wall, right? Yeah, I know there's always the whole thing of like, yeah, well, you know, should have lifted out of it or whatever. You know, that's all kind of rubbish to me. Again, there was a car there, and he got squeezed straight up into the barrier, and that's where the issue really began. Yeah,
just watch here. Nothing Brendan can really do.
No way.
Nothing, and I'm not going to say that Chin is necessarily responsible either for that. It's a tough one, Joey. It's the dangers of racing at such high speeds.
And we've seen that happen quite a few times in real life and in every single iRacing 8500 you ever run. There's always a damaged car on track. There's always a car that's slower for whatever reason. And when they come in contact with the leaders, especially when everybody's still packed up here, as recent as it has been since that last restart, somebody's got to check up, and somebody, unfortunately, has to be the loser. And unfortunately, it was Lichtenberg there, but look at this indecisive pit strategy here. About half the field is staying out, half the field is coming in. Everybody on that alternate strategy has come in, with Malechka and Carey and Musselman, but about half the drivers who came in last time are in again, too.
It's an interesting call. And again, is this one of those magic numbers where drivers would have said, okay, we can make it to the end if we go green from here? Are they trying to just cover their bases, potentially? It's not the worst idea in the world. Let's quickly grab a look at this if we can. This is that shove that, Lewis, you were talking about.
Yeah, so just on the outside, going through 1 and 2, and like I say, just receiving a bit of a hip check. We'll see it once again. You can see around the outside, and Van der Sant's on the inside. Obviously, Blocker's just come through, and it's this second part here. Bang, straight up into the wall. That ain't it, Chief. That's not a good move.
Let's see if we can maybe ride on board with Alexis Newsom, who will give us a much better angle as our camera car.
There's a car there.
Yep, no, I agree. Van der Sant's the one that comes up into him.
I don't know what you can deal with that, but that's Van der Sant every single day of the week for me.
I completely agree with both of you, but I will just say, I think what he was expecting to happen there, with Freckleton that high out of the groove, I think he was probably expecting Freckleton to frankly not get as good of an exit as he did. I think he expected him to be completely behind him once he was in that part of the track, but that's the job of the spotter. That's the job of listening to your spotter and hearing that Dylan Freckleton is to your outside, which I guess they struggled with doing.
Listening to your spotter. Pff, who really does that?
Who does that?
Yeah, but to be fair, have you ever been wrecked? Well, no, I say have you ever. Think of every time that you've been wrecked by someone in an oval race, and they go, "Oh, my spot said clear." I'm like, I still hate you. So you know, it's just how it goes. Sorry, mate.
Fair. I hate you and your robot spotter too.
Yeah, right.
I will just say as well, it's one of the risks that you put yourself in by staying out, if you, in my opinion, if you're Freckleton. It's very early in the race. I understand the call, but at the same time, to be swarmed like that, I'm always the one who's a little bit scared. I don't know about you, Lewis, but I'm always like, I really don't want to be in trouble with these guys.
Yeah, I do agree. Like, you know, you're kind of asking for trouble at that point, but then also you've got to, like, if he wasn't squeezed up into, I know it's so easy to say, he wasn't squeezed up into the wall by Van der Sant, would that second incident have happened between Chin and Lichtenberg? That's kind of like, and I don't think it would, because I don't think he would have been dropping back into it. I don't think it would have been swarmed as much. It was just the 1 or 2 or 3 that were coming through. It's about coming through and you know, giving room and whatnot. I understand both sides of it, but yeah, either way, it wasn't pretty. I do respect the gamble and the attempt, and now we get to see if those that have now made that stop, like Malechka and whatnot. Now, what do they do on this restart that'll be happening on the exit of 4? What can Demerit, what can Olsen, what can Traino do? They've already had a little bit of fisticuffs out on track.
Look at all those plus marks on the timing tower as well, Joey. There are lots of drivers that are working their way forwards, albeit quietly.
It's a festive Australian Christmas tree. Green and gold over there. A lot more green. There goes Demerit. Back green.
Here we go. Cautions breed cautions, but now maybe a bit of a reset. Demerit from Olsen, from Traino, from Blocker. It's I5G power slide, I5G power slide at the front, and it's a nice coordinated start once more. It's a bit less tidy, though, at the back of the pack, where the likes of Phil Kraus see plenty of action in the mid-pack.
Yeah, it's dicey back here. Whoa, yeah, very dicey indeed. Absolutely. I mean, it's very scary when you kind of push that low down through 1 and 2. But like I say, got to give it a go every now and then. Hugo Olsen then will take over the race lead from Demerit as we head through 3 and 4.
Here come the mid-pack, but you're right, it is now going to be Olsen swapping around with Demerit. And it's the first time, Joey, today that we see Olsen having a bit of clean air to play with. Let's see the speed out of that Powerslide Motorsports car.
That's that march forward I was talking about. Like David Byrne, he's been marching through the wilderness, and he's finally found himself in the lead of this race. And now we see, you know, how good is that car in the lead of this race? He's been great in traffic. He's been making moves. He's been inching his way forward in the pit cycles. But now for the first time, he is the lead car of the pack. It seems like he's pretty trimmed out. That car seems pretty good in a straight line. Demerit wasn't able to pull to the inside and switch back with him that time. Through turn 4 this time, I'm wondering if Demerit even wants to take the lead here, or if he's just going to stick behind Hugo for a little bit. Well, I instantly get my answer to my question there.
I would be shocked if you're not swapping right now. I think that's the bigger concern. Whoa! Again out of turn 4, and it is starting to claim more and more victims. Brendan Lichtenberg, Matt Hollobot involved in this one. And what did we say, guys? Cautions breed cautions.
Not seen too many of them. Like I say, normally with the Indy 500, it's typically we would get a caution or two maybe early, although for the most part it's green for quite a lot. But there is always a part of the race where the string of cautions comes in. It's normally a bit later than this, and we have certainly seen our fair share. This is looking at Lichtenberg's car ahead's going to...
It was always going to be Hollobot that was the one having issues. I don't really know how Freckleton got through there. Not sure.
That's it on board. We got to ride on board with.
He lifted out, and then, yeah.
Okay, let's start with Lichtenberg's perspective, because I'm not sure if Hollobot hits the wall or if he just backs out of that, because he was always a groove high. Yeah, he didn't hit the wall, just lifted out of it, and oh my goodness, those are two of the hardest hits I think we've seen. Matt Hollobot always finds ways to find hard hits here, but this is Dylan Freckleton. Oh my God.
Kept it pinned.
There might have been contact there in some universe, but luckily in Dylan Freckleton's internet universe, there wasn't.
It's the second time today that we've had a close call, because Musselman had not as close a call, but still a relatively close call. But we're not even halfway through, guys. We've had 4 cautions so far, and it's all about that turn 4 that seems to be causing so many issues, Lewis.
And 3 of them have happened in the very recent past. Right, you know, like for one, that was 1 lap. The second, the caution that we had, not this one, obviously the one before, that was after 3 laps of racing, 4 laps of racing. So we've had, like, we're in that stretch where we'll see quite a few. The thing is, the way that I see it is that you have to treat every caution that when you go green flag racing, that you're about to go green flag racing, it's going to be green all the way to the end, right? You've got to always be ready for that green flag. Yes, I'm sure some teams or some drivers will take a risk expecting a caution out in the near future, but then you're trying to guess and sort of have your destiny created for it. Whereas if you're preparing for this to go green to the end, you're creating your own destiny. You're going out for it yourself.
Only a handful of cars down on pit lane. Kevin Burrell, Josh Tucker, and Dylan Freckleton will find their way to the lane. I did want to bring your attention, by the way, to something that happened on the previous restart and has claimed AJ Musselman, I believe, from the race. Just, again, I think there's a little bit of miscommunication and coordination that happens here on that run into turn 1, because after this restart, Joey, he ends up having to take the a trip to pit lane with significant damage.
Let's see what happened to him here. He peeks to the inside here.
It was so small.
This was the 3-wide moment we saw. It's weird. I didn't actually see any contact that would cause that heavy damage, but clearly it was. No. He's on struggle street.
See if we can go from up above and get a better look at it. Oh, it's with Chin. It's the right rear that would go, I guess.
But did he already have damage before that contact with Chin happened?
I don't think so. But again, remember, he managed to skip away from the thing that we had earlier.
Yeah, that's very weird. That is very, very odd. Unless, of course, the dreaded netcoders got involved and whatnot. But normally you would see the car move an awful lot more than that. So I am a bit baffled on that one. I don't know exactly what's happened, and to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure he does either.
I've just noticed something that Chad Simpson has pointed out, by the way. Chad, the spotter/engineer for Adam Crane, said, be patient. Literally on the next lap, Adam Crane hits the wall. Sometimes those in your ear can only tell you what to do. You've still got to execute a little bit. Word from race control, by the way, end-of-line penalty for Alexander Van der Sant for that contact with Dylan Freckleton. We've seen Malechka be able to carve his way through the field, Joey. Van der Sant's going to have to do it by himself now.
Yeah, he's got a mentor, or he's got somebody he can look up to in Malechka, and he's been able to make passes. He's been able to move his way forward. You know, Van der Sant can do the same as well. Be 119 laps to go here. I'm thinking strategy again. Everybody who came down under that last cycle, so just Van der Sant, frankly, I think they're completely safe to go 3 stops to the end, if my math is correct. Everybody else, they're still in that iffy zone where I think they might have to save a couple of extra laps of fuel if they want to do it on just 3 stops. Van der Sant, though, he's good on 3.
So AJ Musselman does return to the track 4 laps down. So 33 starters have now seen 6 retirees. Brendan Lichtenberg, Matt Holliber, the 2 most recent. One for Team I5G, of course, the other for the All-American iRacers. It's a good day for Evan Adams. Squeaks into the field and seems to be okay. What's going on track? Has Jason Brophy just had a technical failure as we get ready to go racing once again?
Yeah, is this going to get delayed, or is he going to be... I don't know.
I'm not actually sure, to be completely honest.
No?
Just leave Brophy there like Dalton Kellett. He'll be fine.
You're referring to St. Petersburg. Now, Jason Brophy, I think, did have a technical issue, has been able to partially mitigate it. Would expect him to roll to pit lane and see what he can do from there. Now one of the 3 private label Team Hype machines is out of the running. We're racing once again at Indianapolis, Lewis.
Yes, indeed, all nice and clean through the first couple of corners, as you would expect. Everyone single file, and everyone's spreading out a bit more than the norm. Hugo Olsen then straight up to the front past Christopher Demerit and back into the race lead again. Not that it matters too much. Drivers are further down the order that we need to keep an eye on. The likes of Phil Krause, Josh Chin are quite close, but towards the back end of the top 20 with a lot of work to do for our pole man. But they're around the likes of Malechka, who's made up so many spots today.
Josh Tucker got a black flag on that restart, so he's been forced to immediately head to pit lane. It's a free spot for Alexander Van der Sant. He's now in 23rd and trying to work on the back of Kevin Birrell. But of course, there is plenty to work to do. Maybe the good thing here, Joey, is if Van der Sant can latch onto the likes of Kraus, Kinsella, and Carey, he'll be around drivers who are quick. But so is the rest of the field.
But they have been the class of the field at times, especially Kraus, especially Kinsella, who's up in the top 10. Brian might be able to carry him forward a little bit. He might struggle with that. But Josh Chin as well. That's a good pack of drivers to be with. It's harder to advance a pack through the field, I think, than it is with just one singular driver, because you've got to figure out how to organize, you've got to try and drag each other forward, and you've got to make sure you're not just racing with each other and holding yourselves up. So that's going to be quite a difficult hornet's nest there back in 17th. Everybody's got to figure out, do we fight with each other right now, or do we just hang back and advance our way forward?
Again, the first part of this run settling down a little bit more than is normal. Let's see if we can see what happened to Jason Brophy and just ride with him and listen to the engine. He's off the throttle. I don't remember off the top of my head if this is VR or monitors for Jason Brophy. Whichever one it is, it's pretty indicative, though, of a monitor failure, if you ask me, Lewis.
Is that Van der Sant in the background?
Yeah.
Oh, another huge one off of turn 4.
Well, we're adding them up.
They are starting to pile up, that is for sure.
Who was that?
It is Van der Sant.
Yeah. Right.
Without a shadow of a doubt, it is Van der Sant, but does he get involved with that? No, he hits the wall on his own.
Oh.
And then another hard hit to the inside wall.
That was a big hit. I mean, this is at the point where it's like, I don't really want to watch this. That is absolutely stunk him into the barrier. Incredibly fast. Definitely done for the day. And we have our 4th caution. Well, 5th caution overall, 4th caution in such a short period, though. They are adding up at the moment, and it's quite a lot of single car incidents, to be honest, which means that we could essentially keep going for another 30 of these.
Yep, nope. And I think the problem is, right, there's a lot of things that you could say, well, race control could step in. I don't know what race control could step in to do when cars keep knocking down the wall off of turn number 4.
Tell everyone to stop being idiots.
Move the wall, Arjuna.
Move the wall.
Yeah, I wish I had that sort of power.
They had that in it was not moving the wall. They were going to put a chicane in on NASCAR. Well, obviously it was NASCAR on what is effectively turn 1, but obviously it was the final corner when they did Formula 1 around here in 2005. They're going to put a chicane in there, but obviously they couldn't get approval. I don't necessarily know about getting approval to just move the wall back, let alone actually doing it during the middle of a race. Although I would like to see it.
I'm trying to envisage how you'd even do it.
They tried to do that at Michigan in like the 80s. They were like, oh, Michigan's getting too fast. So they just did the oval at Michigan as normal, but they put a chicane on the back straight. I think they had Bobby Unser test it for 1 lap. He came back. He said, absolutely not. We're not doing this. This is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. And Michigan is still unbastardized as it is now.
Well, we just need to have the oval be as so wide that essentially it curves up naturally, as in a
just
in a
uses the curvature of the Earth.
Until it's at 90 degrees. So it's like the banking is very, very steep at the top, but then it turns into the super speedway that we had released. What was it?
iRacing Super Speedway.
It was just called the iRacing Super Speedway. Yeah, and it just turns into that, doesn't it? But
Board Track Revival.
Well, it had another name in its previous incarnation, Lewis, but we just call it the iRacing Super Speedway now.
Yeah, yes.
You were thinking of that other one. Yeah, the original name. Yes, I know where you were going. Right. One thing that 5 cautions in less than 100 laps does is, Joey, frustrate some drivers at the front who just want to get on with the task at hand, which is go fast and win the race. How do you settle your momentum and your nerves as this starts to wind on maybe a little bit more?
I'm definitely not the driver to ask that question to. When I'm in a caution cycle like this, I'm always getting distracted. I'm like, can we please just go racing already? I'm sick of sitting under caution here.
Yeah.
But this is actually good, I think, for some of the drivers up front here. They've all cycled forward. I was talking about how Van der Sant, before he crashed, might have been good on a 3-stop. Everybody else had to do a 4-stop. As these cautions continue to come out, if we maybe make it all the way to lap 90 or so under caution, I think these guys will still be good to make it to lap 90 if the laps are all under caution. And Actually, that'll be difficult. That'll be about a 45 lap stint under caution. That might be a little bit too much, but with every caution, you get to save a little bit more fuel. It gets a little bit more comfortable for all these drivers who came in 22, 23 laps ago.
It's been a while since we had green flag pit stops. Are we ready to get that cycle back underway? The race started so promisingly as well. It's just started to claim victim after victim after victim. Turn 4 starting to pile up. Weather's going back and forth. It's not the wind that's playing havoc. It's likely going to be those track temperatures and then the dirty air compounding on top of that. But it's not really gotten too much warmer from here, Lewis. And the good thing, hopefully, for the drivers is that as we reach the end of the race, hypothetically, it will just go down in terms of temperature.
Yeah, I think a lot of drivers have been caught out. For one, the temperature is high, as you'd expect. 54 degrees track temperature, that is pretty toasty. It's more the fact of, like I say, inconsistent tyre wear. Like your tyres have been through a few heat cycles and whatnot, but also your mentality. You've been through a few heat cycles and whatnot, and you're trying to get the race back underway. You've been put into a position where you didn't really expect to be in, or you're further down than you were, then you know that your pace is, and you feel that need to get on with it to really march your way forward, and that's where you over-egg it, especially if you've not been in dirty air for too long. Suddenly you are now in dirty air, and that's obviously what's going to push you straight up into the wall. It's just asking a little bit too much, and the problem is around here, as you know, at turn 4, is that as soon as you start understeering, as soon as the car starts getting tight, you're going to the barrier. It is very hard to save. So, it's kind of each their own on that one.
Joey is thinking more about how the track temperature means that you can almost start to cook some pork out there, Joey.
No, apparently so.
Yeah, you're going to be struggling with the pork, because I feel like if you have that on the track at 130, you'll probably get getting some kind of worms or something. But if you put a nice piece of beef out there, a thin strip like Korean barbecue, you could definitely cook something on this track.
It's making us all hungry.
Darn
Too
right.
much so. No,
I don't get to eat for 2 more hours.
It's only 10 a.m. here. I'm still getting ready to eat something. Here we go, though. Can we get a green flag cycle of pit stops? Hopefully, we're only about 10 laps away from doing so. Again, a bit of checkup at the back of the field. Hopefully, no major dramas. But at the front, nice and tidy as we work through turns 1 and 2.
Oh, who was that was going low? There was someone that was trying to make it just a touch low in the back. I think it might have been Malechka that actually had a slow exit off of 2. That was very dicey there, to have looked down the inside into 1 and almost got pinched just a touch, as Yoshikawa also trying to make a move. All funneling their way through. No massive dramas thus far, knock on wood.
Still got Malechka, Carey, Kraus and Chin all outside of the top 10 right now. They will be looking to try and work forward. Across the yard of bricks we come. It's Olsen from Demerit, Treno, Blocker and Newsom, the top 5 as they run right now. Newsom quietly working her way forward, 1 spot at a time. And remember, she was the one looking good to grab victory if we did not have all those cautions at the end of the month of May, Lewis.
Yeah, getting them out of the way early, meaning that potentially there is some stuff going on later on that they might be able to get involved in. I mean, like I said, she was so good in the month of May. So yeah, had a little bit of time to think what went wrong, what went right, and then how to do it in this race. Just lost the position though to Orman, who's just got to the inside and taken over position inside the top 5. Meanwhile, Olsen just trying to drag Demerit over to the inside, who lifted out, I think, ever so slightly to try and not even get a remote overlap going into 1.
It's David Porcelli who is rolling off a pit lane, and you're wondering why. This is why. Huge check-up on the start, another concertina, and David Porcelli lost part of his front wing, will drop to the back of the pack, you'd think, and hopefully try and stay out of harm's way for the time being. I did say this, Joey, when we got this restart underway. The fact is these drivers have done about 23, 24 laps on their tyres and on their fuel tanks once the green dropped once more. We're only about 10 maybe laps away from the pit window opening for those at the front.
Yeah, they're just basically riding right now, and Hugo Olsen, I think that's why he's being so defensive right now. He's not going for the switchbacks with Demerit because he has no reason to right now. They're both on exactly the same strategy right now. He can't really save an extra lap of fuel. He has to come down. This fuel tank is pretty slight right now. But again, I look at the back of the field. I look at some of those drivers who came in, 6, 5 laps ago. Brophy, Kinsella, Freckleton, who might have a little bit of rear end damage. Those are the drivers I'm looking for who are still able to do a 3-stop to the end. Everybody else, I'm not sure if the math adds up. They're going to have to come in, about lap 98. You're going to have to come in about lap 68, about lap 38, and then about lap 8. That's 4 stops if my fingers are correct.
Traino now side by side with Blocker. We get a great view from up at the pagoda. Power Slide looking to put 2 drivers on the podium, but Traino around the outside is having absolutely none of this. And that's why it's important to know what you can do with various lines and the way that you can attack and defend. Both cars showed each other plenty of respect and room, which Lewis, given that those two have had their share of tussles over the years, goes to show how much experience they have as well.
Yeah, exactly. There's no point in losing the race now when you can play the longer game. Saw Aberquazi trying to get the move done on Orman there. I think Bennett's already got through on that, up into that 7th position. So they've already made a few switches over the time. We're actually seeing quite a lot of position switches over each lap. So obviously we would expect this for 2 or 3 laps before things start to really calm down as Malechka still fends off Alexander.
Make up positions now, make them up early. Still Brian Carey, this time around the outside of Yoshikawa, will be able to make it stick, and I think at the very least Chin will follow. Kraus likely to squeak on through as well, which is exactly what the private label Team Hype would have wanted to see. Jason Brophy is still running, by the way. He is in 19th position, so all 3 of the team cars are on track. Dylan Freckleton, the only one that has lost the draft in what is now a 22-car pack for the lead. Obviously a bit down on speed. Joey mentioned the potential for rear wing damage. Again, if you're watching this Open Wheels 500 as we near the halfway marker, let us know who you're cheering for, where you're watching from live here on RaceSpotTV in what has been a very stop-and-start opening. Almost 100 laps of this race. Defending race winner Hugo Olsen runs us around with Demerit, Traino, Blocker, and Oster, the rest of the top 5. And as I was mentioning earlier, Joey, it is very much just a couple of teams that are running at the front right now.
There are a few privateers and smaller teams, though, that have, over the course of these cautions, over the course of the strategy moves, they have inched their way forward. Somehow it's the 2 drivers that I know the most about. It's Hamilton Akabuizi and Mitch Welker, who have been advancing their way through the field. Hamilton's got the family in the chat as usual. He's legitimately up to P9. That's not just being off strategy. He has been making moves all night long. He just got into the IndyCar a couple of seasons ago, I think. I don't even think he's been on iRacing for that long. He's only been on since 2021. But he has absolutely picked up this stuff very, very well, as has Mitchell Welker on the oval side. But I got something for you, for Arjuna and Lewis here. What year do you think Hamilton Akabuizi was born?
Oh, I don't want to answer that question.
I'm going to go, let's say they're 16, so...
2007.
Not bad.
Like I said, don't want to answer that question.
Wild stab in the dark, not bad. What year do you think Arjuna was born?
Yeah, let's not.
He's old.
1964.
Exactly. That's spot on as well.
How do I kick Joey from the broadcast booth? Enter into Google, please, Siri. To be fair, I really feel old when there's been two moments I remember. One, when we had the Jarno Leskinen podium in the iRacing Rallycross World Championship last year, when he became the youngest podium sitter in iRacing history at 13 years of age. And then it was this year when young Jacob Rafoss, who is now 15, but when I was commentating on him first, was 14 years old, won a world championship race. But then, I think the thing that I've realized, Lewis, is I feel old now. What's it going to be like for the likes of Sebastian Job, Zach Campbell, or a lot of these guys that came through the Apex Racing Academy to make it to the top level of sim racing 5 years from now when they're in our shoes looking at the newcomers joining the fun?
This is why you bail from the driving scene, just get into the commentary. I don't have to put any work into this. You just sort of sit down and watch it, just talk about it. It's much better than being a driver. No, honestly, it's crazy. The amount of talent coming into sim racing these days, it's higher than it's ever been. I promise you, and I'm not joking about here, I am actually glad that I am not on grids like this, because the amount of work and preparation and pressure that these drivers put in to be at the front with all of the talent that's coming through, and it is a constant battle every single day. That's why some people love it, some people hate it. It's what makes sim racing so interesting and so good, as we'll see Newsom and Allman switch over position with Akabuizi just sat there waiting, watching, and I mean, to be fair, despite him being quite young, he's very mature with what we're seeing at the moment, driving-wise, not doing anything too silly.
Yeah, and this is a race where maturity is so important, and experience is so important as well. We talked in the DNLS race that Lewis and I were commentating earlier today about how you can only really get experience with multi-class traffic by experiencing multi-class traffic, and the same is true for dealing with dirty air, Joey. How do you use your in-car adjustments? There's no science really behind it. It's all about just getting behind the wheel, feeling it out, and figuring it out from there.
Yeah, that is truly the only thing you can do. You can remember that, you know, up on the weight jacker means looser, down on the weight jacker means tighter. That's all well and good. But you can't just ask the driver in front of you. I know I did that so many times when I was first learning this car. When I was first on iRacing, I would be asking Mitch, I would be asking Matt Hollabaugh, what weight jacker are you guys in? And every time the answer would be, you just got to figure it out for yourself. I can't tell you that. You got to feel how you're comfortable with the car. You got to find your own way to adjust things, because that's what these in-car tools give you. It's meant to craft the setup to your own ability. You can't just copy what somebody else is doing.
Halfway through this race and 99 to go. 36 laps complete on the fuel and tires. For those at the front of the field, we are inching closer and closer to that magic mark where we will have some green flag pit stops once again. Brandon Traino trying to go forward. He goes from 4th to 2nd in the space of one straightaway.
Yeah, like I said, he's got. If we were speaking of experience and stuff. If you want to speak of drivers with experience around here, when it comes to winning, Brandon Traino is your guy. As we can see again, a little bit of a squeeze in the background up towards the wall. I think it might have been Oster on, or maybe. But like I say, got a couple of dicey bits of racing, but Brandon Traino plotting his way through brilliantly. Now again, guy ahead, Hugo Olsen, defending race winner, and a guy that he's made contact with already in this race, a guy that he's raced with plenty of times. How does he chart this final one, or is he just going to sit behind, say there's extra few little bits of fuel before we head into the pit window sequence?
And we haven't had any swap drafting really since the restart. I can hear, by the way, Lewis, you do sound as tired as I feel right now.
Thank you. I am trying.
Yeah, it's been a long day.
I'm just bored of your voice, mate.
I don't blame you. I mean, seriously. Who thought to put us together for 8 hours today and then another 3 hours tomorrow? At least 3 hours tomorrow now that
I was going to say, you know, it's all right. We've got you and O'Leary. So no disrespect to you, Joe. You'd be more than welcome. But you've got to learn how to deal with mine and Arjuna's rubbish.
Yes.
Which, as much as we've all been talking about, all these drivers have to do something to learn from it. You're having to learn right in the deep end of how to deal with us two, and it's not an easy experience.
Sometimes it does sound like we're an old married couple. Sometimes, seriously.
Absolutely.
We've already had 3 arguments on this broadcast. It's not even going that long.
You just got to let them go, and eventually they'll resolve it.
You say it's not been going that long, but we've been going for almost 2 hours right now, my friend. So you really don't. You must not hate me that much if 2 hours flies by that quickly after already spending so much time with me. And again,
I've been enjoying spending time with Jerry, actually.
Fair. Hugo Olsen, pit lane, not shocked. He's been the one punching the hole in the air. Everyone else will try and go a little bit longer, with the exception of Marquez and Yoshikawa. Crucial pit stops now underway, Joey.
And you've got to go fuel save mode now. If you're the likes of Olsen, if you're anybody else who's going to be coming in the next 2 or 3 laps, if you're only going to about lap number 27, like we saw in the initial stint, you are not going to make it to the end of this race on 3 more stops, or on 2 more stops, rather, to make it a 3-stop from when the other caution came out. So you're going to have to go full fuel save mode. You're going to have to hope that you have a buddy that you can save fuel with, and I don't even think you really want to be switching back. I think you just want to ride behind somebody and save fuel if you need to extend to like a lap 32, lap 33 mark. That's some aggressive fuel saving, and that is not easy to do.
Big lock up there as Seb Alexander, I think, had a big moment on pit entry, but execution so important, and this is how we saw Alexander Van der Sant grab his maiden Lionheart IndyCar Series win, was execution on pit lane and being just that fraction better than Phil Kraus when it came to racing at Watkins Glen. Slightly different, yes, but the principles remain the same. One by one, they are starting to filter their way down. Just 8 cars have gone more than 40 laps so far. Is this going to be the magic lap when they all come in?
Yeah,
yes.
I I thought Traino was going to be going for that coming into pit lane because he made a move on blocker. He'd not been really making any moves on anyone, but he wants that clean run into the pit lane. I mean, you've said it before, we've seen enough lockups. It is such a hard pit entry when you're doing it from green flag. You're going so fast, going down to such a low speed in cars that have cold brakes at this point. I will just say Adam Blocker has just missed his box, by the way. He had to reverse into it.
I did wonder, I saw a note that he had entered and then exited and then re-entered his box, which usually only means one thing.
Yep.
But I think the good thing is he likely has minimized the damage. You remember we had that one race in the BMW Sim GT Cup where there was a driver who literally had it in reverse gear before they had even stopped. I think Blocker does something similar here, and you can see just how quickly he responds.
I mean, that is as good as you're going to get it if you miss. No, we had one. I think it wasn't. I think it was one that you were talking about, where someone had come into the box. I can't remember who it was. I think it might be, I feel it's BS competition, where they were going into their box. They'd selected reverse as they were literally in their box, but didn't have to use it. Came to a stop right in the perfect area, but they thought they were going to miss it, which I find hilarious. To be that ready to have made a mistake that you're on top of it, but actually, no, it's fine.
I've got some great memories of the BMW Sim GT Cup, to be honest. I am starting to lose track of them. I think we're just about done with the pit stop cycles. I see Jacob Oster cycling his way through. Still waiting for 9 cars who are yet to pit in their entirety for what would be, Joey, the third to final time today?
That's the idea. There were some drivers at the back of the field, like Andrew Kinsella and Jason Brophy. They're the last two that I think if they can extend this long enough, they can potentially go for No, I think my strategy's all gotten screwed up here because we actually have a green flag run going here. So all my numbers have been thrown completely out of whack here. Basically, just divide this by 3. 30 lap stints. Everybody else, I think, has to make a 3-stop. If Brophy can extend this to lap 90, which he has. So, okay, I'm doing the math in my head live right now. Everybody who's yet to come in, they can do 2 stops at the end. So Malechka, Kraus, Kerry, Chin, Brophy, Burrell, Kinsella, Evan Adams, Freckleton, they can do only 2 more stops to the end. Everybody else has 3 more, unless they can save a heck of amount of fuel.
Getting word that I think, unfortunately, Dylan Freckleton's damage is now causing him to be above the minimum speed requirement. So, unfortunately, the day will likely come to an end for the privateer. However, just making it to the field of 33 is an accomplishment in and of itself, Lewis, despite the fact that Freckleton looked competitive even before his strategy gamble to try and stay out.
Yeah, I mean, this is the whole thing. Same as it is in real life. That qualifying build-up, it's not a simple session, and it's not as if, if I mess up qualifying, I might have to start the race from 33rd or whatever. No, it's like if you mess up qualifying, you're not in the race. You are simply not a part of the race. So to get onto the grid, to even get to that part, that, like you said, it is a big achievement, especially when you're in privateer, you're doing it by yourself, or you've only got a couple of teammates to help you out. You haven't got the big group behind you, like Powerslide and i5G. You don't have those massive groups and massive databases of just setups and knowledge from years previous. When you have to do it essentially by yourself, working from scratch, like I say, it's hard work. Come back though next year or in other races around it, and you can see there is the skill, there is the ability, there is the talent, and there is the potential.
Evan Adams will dive to pit lane. I think the first of those in this next cycle. Malechka, Kraus, Carey, Chin, Brophy, Burrell, and Kinsella, those that have stayed out so far. Kinsella, though, is in the best spot of them all. He is 25 laps into his run, Joey, because he, I think, pitted during one of those cautions that we had.
He did. He came in under the last caution, on the last lap of the caution, just to put that little bit of extra fuel in. So I was thinking those past couple of minutes while Lewis was talking, I was doing the math in my head to make sure I get it right. Everybody on your screen right now has to come in 3 more times. So it's all evened out. The question is, can everybody who came in earlier from Traino down, can they do it on 2 stops? Can they save the fuel they need to only come in twice more instead of having to do a splash and dash later on?
Josh Chin has had a prang with the wall. At least it's not on pit entry or exit, to say the very least, but he's had to come down to pit lane. Crucially, though, 9.9 seconds. No damage repair needed on his car.
Yeah, managed to get through it well. I mean, it was quite a heavy hit. I'm actually genuinely surprised. Malechka and Kraus both in the pit lane, so Brophy will take over the race and become another one of our leaders here over the race thus far. I think we're up to 6, maybe 7 leaders now of the 33 that took to the race start. Brophy, like I said, adding to that list. Look, you're absolutely right, though. It would be drivers having to make 3 stops from this point. Those that have obviously just come in over the last 3 or 4, they're now expected to be on 2 stops until the end of the race. Really, if this was green to the end from this point...
Is Kraus out of this? Kraus is being held in the box with a black flag. I think Kraus is being dinged for speeding on pit entry. Sorry to cut you off, Lewis.
No, that's big.
It came unstuck in May in pit lane for Phil Kraus, and after putting it on pole position once again, this time it's on entry. It's done for Phil Kraus.
Such a shame. Such a shame. Easily done, though. That's the pit entry for you.
The heartbreak that is Indianapolis. You mentioned this earlier, Joey. Scott Dixon, one of IndyCar's finest, has been caught out many a time, including in 2022.
It's right on board here, trying to get it slowed down. Oh, yeah, you can see he's locked up well past the commitment line, so he definitely knew the second that happened that he was far over speed. It's weird, he downshifted very, very late. I would have expected him to do that a little bit earlier. Maybe he thought that would have turned him around a little bit, or he would have locked the rear brakes, or he might have also gotten slightly distracted by Malechka ahead and outbraked himself. But no matter how it happened, he knew that happened instantly, and he's probably pretty red-faced right now sitting in his box.
I think he just missed his mark because the indication was the overspeed at the pit entry was not just a little bit. It was a lot. Yeah. It's a shame, unfortunately. I don't even feel like making... I just made the joke about Josh Chin and Pitt. I don't even feel like making that joke right now because genuinely I feel so bad for Phil that for a second time this year, that is how his race comes to a close. Kevin Burrell is on pit lane. Just leave Jason Brophy and Andrew Kinsella still powering around. Hugo Olsen, net race leader, and I guess now we just wonder what's going to happen across of the various strategies, Lewis.
Yeah, it's all going to come to it. For me, like I say, running the, thinking about the numbers, thinking about what's already been done, those that have recently made that stop, if I'm being brutally honest, I think the winner, if this is green all the way to the end, I think the winner is among them because these have to pit once again, unless they can do some incredible fuel saving and still only come in on 2 stints. But I think that is basically impossible. Especially with the speeds that are being run around here. So maybe these guys, that they might actually properly need a caution before we get into that final stint.
Jesper Ullman gets in front of Henry Bennett for what would be net 5th position momentarily. So Robert Malechka is not the best of those that have just pitted. That would be Jacob Oster, albeit with a 6-lap differential between the two of them. That might play out in the favor of the 91 in that final sequence of pit stops. They fan out 3 wide, just searching for a bit of clean air back in the pack. You will notice Phil Kraus is on track, trying to do what he can, Joey. There's no lucky dog. He won't get an automatic wave around or anything like that, but he will try and fight to get onto the leading lap.
And if the caution does come out at the right point for him, I don't want to jinx anything, he can get a wave around if he needs it, and he can get back on the lead lap and still be able to fight for whatever he can look for. He might be out of the conversation for the win. I think that's a little bit too tall of an ask to get a wave around and then pass 25 cars with about 70 laps to go once all of that probably would have cycled out. So I'm not sure he's thinking about the win right now, but I also know that he's the kind of driver who's never going to give up. He's not going to let this get him down. He's going to bring it to the finish no matter what.
Blocker and Traino side by side again as Brophy dives to the lane, just leaving Kinsella out there to run. Kinsella onto lap 33 of his stint so far. So we again started with 33. We're left with 21 on the leading lap. 24 are still running. Evan Adams, Phil Kraus, 1 lap down. AJ Musselman is 4 laps down as it plays right now. We'll come across the line. We will have 79 laps to go. Jason Brophy is going to filter out likely just behind Malechka, if not a little bit further behind, as Kinsella has been able to go 1 lap longer. Joey, what do you think about the call from RaceSpot's own?
Kinsella has made it in. I think this is about where I expected him to be. 80 laps to go. You cannot stretch a fuel tank to 40 laps, so he's not going to be able to do one stop to the end. It's going to be 2 more stops to the end for him. But I still think, me and Lewis both think, it's going to be 3 stops for Blocker and everybody in this pack. All the way down, you got to go to Malechka, you got to go to Carey, and Brophy for the drivers who I think can make it on just 2 more stops.
Kinsella didn't start in a poor starting spot. He was down in 12th. However, they've done well to gain some track position. Where will it fare him out as we cycle through? One of the satellite racing entries also leaving pit lane as David Porcelli gets back up to racing speed. Kinsella's going to be outside of the top 15. So a long way to go for him, with a strategy call that he thinks will play out in his favor. Now Josh Chin is also coming back down to pit lane, and I think Josh Chin is going to retire from this race. So unfortunately, maybe that moment was a bit bigger than we thought.
I was going to say, maybe had optional damage, obviously from clouting the wall between 1 and 2, but clearly it was too much, and yet into the pit lane. I will say, if this train, see, like the 6th car in this train is not for position. That is, of course, Phil Krause is trying to work his way out. This is another look at that incident. Sorry, it was out of 4.
It's a different incident if it wasn't clear. If it wasn't immediately
I was going to say. I was pretty sure it was between 1 and 2, but yeah. So yeah, there's been more issues. Fair enough.
I'm not complaining.
That wasn't a caution.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not complaining it wasn't a caution, Joey.
The tire looks like a biblically accurate angel. It's like doing the rotating thing.
I do really like the new damage model. For those wondering why we had a Corvette GT1 pace car at the start of this race rather than the Corvette GTE that we had in 2020, it's because, well, the GTE doesn't have the new damage model, which would have meant that by using it as our manual pace car, these cars would go back to that older damage model as well. And we saw it in ISOWC, Lewis. It is a game changer in how you race.
Oh, yeah. You've got to think about every little bit. The bits will fly off your car if you're not careful, as we'll see. A bit of 3 wide in the run down towards turn 3. That was welcome massively up the track, because Kinsella was just firing it in there, not waiting for anything. Goes up 2 positions in the single corner. Big move from Kinsella, fresh out of the pit lane. Only 4.6 off the lead, got to be said.
It is still congested, partially I think because of the cautions and the way that has played itself out. Not sure if it will stay like that through the course of the rest of the race. I think it depends on how much the race is going to cool down from here. Evan Adams, of note, is back onto the leading lap, albeit 19 seconds adrift from your leader. He is basically the only car in that top 20 to not be latched onto the back of this gaggle. Bennett and Oster up the track through the short chute, and Bennett holds on for now.
We're seeing a lot of these fades up. It's really scaring me. Kinsella was so aggressive sending it to the inside of Mitch Welker there. He almost forced him into the wall, and we're seeing the same thing here with Bennett and Oster. They're getting very, very aggressive. They know they need these track positions right now. They're not thinking about saving fuel right now. They're thinking about the long run here. It's going to end up with a fade up there for Oster, and he's going to let Alexis Newsom get to the inside. Going to have to close the door on the exit, though. But we're seeing a lot of these fades, and I hope everybody's listening to their spotters or their robot spotters, because 1 more inch and Kinsella would have put Mitch in the wall there.
So Blockers +6, Olsen +3, Bennett +4. Those are the Powerslide Motorsports numbers. Shane Coogan, the privateer, he's +11. Jason Brophy +16. What a great day for him. Mitchell Welker is also +13. Yoshikawa 12. Adams +12 as well. And you did mention this earlier, Lewis, about, if you miss out, you're not in the show. But it's why when Evan just missed out last Sunday, I think everyone was quick to tell him, look, you are the first alternate. There's a chance you're going to be around. We didn't need just 1 alternate for today. We ended up needing 2, and we were moments away from needing the 3rd as well before Craig Forsyth ended up joining just in the nick of time. So never say never when it comes to sim racing, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, if you're down there 38th, 39th, 40th, then you're pretty much like, yeah, we're almost guaranteed to be out. But if you're 34th, it's not as bad as it sounds. You've missed out by 1 position, but you might not have, and that's exactly what we've seen here. Again, switches for the race lead as Blocker will take it over from Trainer. A couple of switches in there as well. Oster and Bennett switching over once again, and Straight back to the inside was Newsom and getting past Bennett herself. Again, I will remind you, in this train for the racing, almost kind of keeping him a little bit closer, is actually Phil Krause, who is a lap down, but isn't a million miles away from getting that lap back. I know he's 21st at the moment, but still, he's involved in that train. He's showing that speed. I'm not saying that this race is back on, but there is hope.
Did you see that with Brophy?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, there was a nervy moment there with Henry Bennett as the 7 and the 88 juked it out of turn number 4. I am curious, maybe we can get the chance to chat with some of the drivers. I don't know why turn 4 seems to be the most difficult corner today, Joey, because I know every driver has their own opinion on what is difficult here at Indianapolis, but it was never really turn 4 for me except on the final lap of a 4-lap qualifying run.
It's always turn 4 for me, honestly. I don't know what it is specifically about turn 4, because all 4 corners at Indianapolis are technically identical. If we're talking geometrically, turn 2 and turn 4 are the same corner, but I never have the same trouble in turn 2 getting into the outside wall as I do in turn 4, and I think that's just because of the wind. The wind's not especially bad today, but you are going in 2 opposite directions, literally, so the wind's going to affect you in a different way into turn 4 than it is into turn 2, and I think it just depends on which way the wind is blowing, and sometimes if it's blowing, I think in a rearward, if it's a backwind, a tailwind, it might just push you into the wall.
A look at a fight for 9th, as squabbling has actually meant that they've slightly lost ground, but within drafting range for the time being. If Bennett and Brophy can actually work together, they'll be in with a good chance of moving forward. When it came to Brophy, of course, we mentioned last week he missed qualifications on Saturday, but then ended up testing positive for COVID-19 on Sunday. So qualified very under the weather. Fortunately, it was a one-and-done qualification attempt, because I don't think that Brophy's nerves could have handled any additional runs. Was unsure about his physical health coming into today, however, he's held up quite well. And in some ways, Lewis, maybe the stop and start is more beneficial for someone who needs a little bit of a rest here and there in terms of the mental focus.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be frustrating, but it can also be a blessing in disguise. Still going side by side with Bennett going through for Brophy to the inside in that unmissable green IndyCar. I mean, I love that. I love the colour. I think it's absolutely spot on. But yeah, we'll lose out just a little bit in that. But I mean, say lose out. Bennett was already ahead going into it. It was Brophy trying to wrestle that spot over. I mean, obviously it's been an issue on the planet, obviously with COVID and whatnot. It is one of those things which lingers. Even when you're over it, it lingers, it sits, and it will be there for a while. I remember chatting to Mitchie Hoyer about this, of course, who races more on R-Factor 2 and whatnot, about how he said he struggled with it for a month or two after when I had it. It was certainly a month afterwards. I could still, you still feel it. So certainly a week or so afterwards, it will be on your mind. You'll be almost out of breath, and it is one of those things where you, maybe at this point, even in sim racing, you're sat there being like, I actually quite like a caution right now, so I can just catch my breath and just breathe for a moment and get focused for the final 60 laps. But that's not how racing works.
I will ask this question to both of you. I'll start with Joey. What color is Jason Brophy's car?
Green.
It's Danica Patrick green.
Because I'd argue that Henry Bennett's is British racing green, which it is. I can confirm it because I've seen the hex code. Andrew Kinsella's, I'd argue, is also green. Jason Brophy and myself have had an argument about this. He's got a new paint scheme now, which is different from what he had before. He insisted before he had the Grello, to which I said there is only one Grello, it's on a Porsche, and it's got to be a man-type Porsche.
Yeah.
There's no Ello, it's just Grr.
It's Grr.
But that's the other thing. Before it was just yellow, it was less green.
Does COVID make you, like, insusceptible to determining what colors are? Because maybe he's just maybe he's getting confused.
That's 100% green. Now, see, I know this because I've been having this about. I have pretty much one jumper that I wear on most motorsport weekends. It's kind of like at least
I know that one too.
In it, right? What color is it?
Oh, that's a terrible question.
Because everyone's like, oh no, it is blue. And I'm like, no, it's green. It's green. It's a green jumper. But no, apparently it's realistically if you want to go with it, it's turquoise, but yeah, whatever.
Okay, I was going to say it's somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, but it's green. It's more on the green side. There's the same thing with that. Is that there's a touch of yellow in it, but it's green.
I still maintain his previous car was yellow. I would call that more green now than the yellow before. But it was never Grello. It is still not Grello. 66 to go will become 65. Within the window where you can make it with 2 stops, who will blink first is the question. It's Blocker that will hit the point in front of Traino and Olsen. So Power Slide, Apex I5G, then Power Slide, then I5G, and then Phil Kraus splitting the top 4 from Jesper Orman as it plays right now.
I think Kraus is actually Jesper Orman's best friend right now, because Kraus isn't going to be racing the guys ahead for position. He might if he wants to get back on the lead lap, but I don't know how aggressive he'll get. He's not going to be able to make all 4 of these moves on track to be able to take his position on the lead lap back. So he's just riding in line. Jesper Orman can ride behind him in line as well and save that little bit of critical fuel and just ride behind arguably the fastest driver in the race who is forced against going anywhere.
Well, and I was trying to do the mental math, which is why it took me a while, because you never trust Arjuna's math when he's got plenty of sleep as well. But we're probably, what, 3, maybe 2-3 laps away, Lewis, from seeing those leaders come in. So Phil Kraus will get the lap back eventually just by the nature of the cycle of pit stops.
Realistically, they should be in pretty soon. I mean, if they, because I think they're on about their 30th lap now, so I'd suspect they'll be in realistically this lap or next lap. I don't suspect that they'll be getting too much longer. But if they do end up going long, you can see there, Hugo Olsen, 31 laps. You know how I said earlier about how those that had pitted the later points, so the likes of Brophy, Kinsella and that lot, those that had pitted later, and obviously that had pitted later, they were almost guaranteed they were going to make 2 more stops from that point. It would take those that were essentially on the cusp, they'd need to fuel save an awful lot. Trust me, right now, they are on the cusp of fuel saving enough. Right, to the point where they might actually only be in for 2 laps. It's going to be a bit of a fuel mileage race, but they're really pushing themselves back in it by just being smart on the fuel strap.
I do like a fuel mileage race because it's dramatic in its own way. You don't need the wheel-to-wheel to have drama. I still remember mid-2021, official Monday night iRacing IndyCar broadcast on RaceSpotTV. Alexis Newsom ran out of fuel into turn 3, but was the only car that hadn't made the final pit stop of the race, and she spluttered literally out of turn 3 all the way to the yard of bricks to win by like 100th or 1,000th of a second. It was one of the most dramatic finishes that I've ever seen. Of course, ruined because my voice was absolutely knackered that day, and I was solo commentating, so it sounds like I was a shrieking bat or something like that, but I wouldn't...
Maybe anyway.
Thank you, Lewis. I'm proud of that. Traino Olsen coming. Curiously, it's Blocker that's able to extend, and the margin to demerit is 1.6 seconds.
That is very interesting, Arjuna Kankabati.
Oh, God.
He's been riding behind Olsen, but they were switching back. You were exactly right. They were doing the switchy. But clearly Adam Blocker's doing some kind of secret thing, as have Demerit, as has Jesper Orman, who I mentioned was behind Phil Kraus. They've all done a little bit better of a job on the fuel. That almost makes me wonder if Hugo and Traino could have gone 1 more lap, but they just thought it was too close to risk it.
I wonder if the overcut's going to work a treat here for Blocker compared to Demerit, because just the speeds for Demerit are down by virtue of losing the toe. And so as Blocker comes in, Demerit crucially stays out. If Blocker syncs up with Olsen and Traino and they get straight back up to speed and are swapping back and forth in some clean air, we've got an interesting 3-car breakaway. Shades of 2020 in some ways, Lewis.
Yeah, this is fascinating right now. Like I say, the fuel numbers they're hitting, these are looking actually really, really good. If they can keep this up, then yeah, there is 1 more stop left to go, and they are all charging for it. You can see there at the top of your screen, that's Blocker on pit lane, now leaving. Traino pushing forward. Olsen just a little bit too far behind to be using too much that slipstream, but like you say, it depends where Blocker comes out in all of this. If he slots out between the 2 of them, it'll be very good indeed.
About as perfect on pit exit as you want to get, using as much of the runoff that you are allowed to use, and Blocker will indeed sync up with Traino. Olsen will get the benefit as well of being towed back into line by his teammate who has left the pit lane. And now we wait and see. Jesper Orman will dive to the lane, slides through his box, and that is a little bit more painful than what Blocker experienced earlier, Joey.
Yeah, Jesper did not quite have the reverse gear initiated before he was even thinking about braking, so, you know, maybe he needs a second brain. Like, I don't even remember who that was before. Was that Phil Kraus that backed up?
Blocker.
Adam Blocker, of course.
Oh, and the caution is out in the midst of a pit stop cycle. Christopher Demerit and Alexis Newsom were already committed to the pit lane, but Brian Carey has had an issue, and on his first outing in the Open Wheels 500-mile race, after a cycle of green flag stops, Brian Carey sees the caution come back out.
Wow, wow, wow. This is big time on the drama. Out of 3, straight up into the barrier, and going for a multitude of spins. You know who this brings not back into the race for a win right now?
Phil Kraus.
Perfect for Phil Kraus. Perfect.
Oh my days, there were some cars that had to scamper on
through. Was that
through.
Musselman again who had to avoid him?
I think so.
I felt like it was the 3rd time lucky for AJ Musselman, who is running out of lives. I'm just saying, he had 9 coming into this. He's already burned through at least 3 that we've seen. So a nice cycle of pit stops now coming as we slow things down once more, Lewis.
Yeah, I'd say we've not had a caution for a little while, but I think it's about 40 laps between cautions that time. Obviously, we just ticked over, or just around ticking over 100 to go when we had our last one. There's 105 to go. So it's about 40, 50 laps without a caution. So this is absolutely fine. Who is going to bite? Obviously, we're not at the point where we're going to be making the final stops. Quite a lot have already been into the pit lane recently.
It hurts the 5 that had stayed out.
Yeah, certainly does. Big time.
Those are the ones that will lose out the most. Malechka, Oster, Brophy, Kinsella, and then Birel were the 5 or 6 whose names that I recalled. They will, of course, cycle back. Now, what happened with Demerit as well as with Newsom? That was a thing, because they had committed to the pit lane literally as the caution came out, and I think it's worked perfectly for Demerit. Newsom has been able to pit. She has not gained in the way that Demerit has, though.
How it goes, I guess. Yeah, it's like I say, sometimes you just don't get the luck of the draw. You know, these cautions come out at awkward times. You know, that's how sometimes these races go. Sometimes positive, sometimes negatives. Sometimes you just got to focus on yourself and focus on what's at hand and be like, right, okay, so reset on strategy. Maybe I'm not in the position that I wanted to be in, but I do have time to get back to it, so it's not a problem. Alas, we'll have to wait and see. We've got 57 laps to go at this point. When we go back racing, probably about 56, 55 to go. I think it's 56 to go when we go back racing. Will we see another caution? If I'm perfectly honest, yes.
I was going to say don't be perfectly honest.
Well, considering how the driving's been today, no disrespect, because it's not been awful, certainly not car to car, but it's just that it's shown that this circuit bites, and we've seen quite a few mistakes, and so I'd say that the likelihood is that we'll probably see another 1 or 2 single car mistakes that will cause a caution later on.
We are definitely seeing the attrition like you talk about. This track is notoriously difficult as well. AJ Musselman, just by virtue of staying out there, though, is picking up positions. We'll get a handful of cars waved around here by virtue of the fact that Demerit was on pit lane when the caution came out. One of those weird situations. However, if we go green from here, Joey, we're estimated to have about 40 minutes of running in effect, with all cars having pitted with the exception of David Porcelli. It's a 40-minute sprint from here.
And the fact that this caution came out perfectly on like lap number 60, that means that every single driver in the field has one more stop to go. The strategy is completely evened out. All these positions are legit now. All those drivers who had to get waved around, Akabuizi, Welker, Marquez, Yoshikawa, Seb Alexander, Porcelli, and Evan Adams, they're all going to rejoin the back of the train. But I think they would have been there either way. I don't think they got screwed over by the pace car coming out. I think that's around where all those drivers were anyway. And they will get to join the back of the train. They should be able to make there in time before we restart.
Pace cars heading into turn 3. Look on the left side. Shane Coogan, plus 15, is up into 6th spot. Another one of our privateer entries, but it's Jason Brophy, the biggest mover so far, up into 9th. What does the 88 have in store? So Lewis thinks we're getting more cautions. Joey, what do you think?
I agree with Lewis. There's got to be at least one. Everybody knows they're on the same strategy now. They know there's no strategy games to be played. You have to make your moves on track. You got to get aggressive. That breeds caution sometimes.
It's time to put the pedal to the metal and to go, go, go. The green flag will fly once more in Speedway, Indiana. Down into turn number 1. Again, a bit of a checkup in the heart of the pack. But Christopher Demerit extends a bit of an advantage as the speeds build up and we wind these cars up to 220 miles an hour once more.
Yeah, back to it indeed. Back to that speedy, speedy racing that we absolutely love. Maybe for the final time, maybe not. I think not, certainly. So Demerit takes over second position. Blocker going side by side into 3, who actually ends up taking over the race lead. Demerit dropping back a few spots also now behind even Olsen, as it's Blocker, Traino and Olsen, the top 3.
Let's look at conditions very quickly because we said they may change. How quickly will they change? It's at 57 degrees. It's gone up just as we hit the button. Joey, the tires are going to be at their most vulnerable when the drivers need them the most.
They are absolutely struggling right now. Partly cloudy. I think that's wrong. We're going to have to fire the weatherman because those clouds have not been covering the track at all. It has just been getting hotter and hotter and hotter over the course of the day. We're up to about 135 degrees Fahrenheit now, which is just ridiculously hot. These cars are still running well together. The air doesn't seem to be so thick that you can't... The air doesn't seem to be so thin, rather, that you can't really race with each other, but it's very, very hot. The tires are going to be struggling, and you can't pull any alternate tire strategy. You've got to come in one time. You've got to make these tires work for 2:30 or 27-lap stints.
On board with the Wormman, Jacob Oster making his debut in the Open Wheels 500. Of course, last year was his breakout year. It came in a year with no open wheels running whatsoever, but it was during the month of May when he impressed, bringing Total Downforce Racing into the big show. i5G took notice. Jacob has been growing as a driver and as a contributor to the setup development ever since then. He runs in 8th across the yard of bricks with 52 laps still left to go. I'll be honest, guys, I have no idea and no expectations for the end of this race. I do get the sense, though, Joey, that being at the front and within the front 2 cars is where you want to be.
That's the only place you really can be. If you're 4th where Christopher Demerit is, your hope is basically right now that the 2 up front go side by side, they check each other up, Hugo Olsen gets checked up in the process, and then you can pick off Hugo, and then you can try and fight with the 2 ahead. But Traino and Blocker, they're going to keep switching back here. They're going to be basically exclusively fighting each other for the lead. Even as they get close to the wall, it's going to be hard for Hugo to break up that twosome.
I think you got worried as well as myself there, Lewis, at how close Traino was flirting with the wall.
Yeah, my good, he got tight in turn 3, went straight up to the wall, but obviously his experience, he got out the throttle early enough, will lose the race lead to Blocker, but again, it's not too much of a drama. Still will need to save a touch of fuel, but I think it should realistically be all right, and Trainer will probably take the race lead straight back here. We've seen this switching through the opening stages, and we'll see it continue here. You said before about the hotter it is, about the thinness of the air. Obviously, the thicker it is, the more air you're moving out of the way, the more the slipstream is in effect. The hotter it is, the thinner it is, meaning that the slipstream has less of an effect. And you'll notice that not between the first 2 or 3. You notice that when you're in the pack and you just cannot make a move. Look at Phil Krause, a driver that needs to get on with it right now. Restarted this race in 13th, presently runs in 13th. He's been able to make no moves. Now, obviously, I think there is a little bit of sitting behind Bennett here. I have seen him try and make a couple of moves like this as we ride on board with him. Very scary indeed. He's lifted out of it a few times coming into turn 3. But still, it is much harder to pass when you're in this mid-pack because the guy ahead's getting the same level of slipstream from the cars ahead.
50 to go becomes 49, less than 125 miles left in the return of the Open Wheels 500. You say Phil Krause is down in 13 spots. He's running out of time to move forward, and like you say, with the inability to have made up some positions on the start. The next real opportunity likely to be in the one final remaining potential green flag cycle of pit stops that we have here. Joey, in these final 49 laps, what may you be thinking about in terms of the car? We mentioned earlier you can build in some adjustments with the wings into your setup. What are you thinking you'll do as the temperature continues to vary?
In the later stages of the race, when we get to like lap 10, or 10 to go rather, when you're getting into those really aggressive stages where you need to be making moves, I think we'll start to see the weight jackers go up a little bit more. We'll start to see the drivers get a little bit more aggressive so they can throw some last-ditch efforts at the cars ahead of them, but that also leads to mistakes sometimes. When you've got the weight jacker a little bit too high, when you overextend your own limits, that could be what brings out a race-ending caution potentially when everybody's getting aggressive in the dying stages of the race. I do also want to think about the pit strategy because we will have one more pit stop. It could be green flag, it could be under yellow, but if it is a green flag pit stop, everybody on this lead lap right now, all the way back to Seb Alexander in 21st, they're thinking, what do I do? Do I come in as early as I can and extend that final stint, but potentially get a little bit of an undercut on the initial stop, or do I extend it for as long as possible, hope for a caution, and then make it a short run to the finish? That's the dilemma that everybody has right now.
I would just like to ask, by the way, to iRacing, please update the pylon, because I like the old school pylon, don't get me wrong, but the pylon at the IMS, the updated IMS in the real world, is a fully digital screen that they do some really cool things with, and iRacing could do some cool things with as well. Back and forth still. Blocker and Traino will continue to go. It's Hugo Olsen, though, in the best seat possible in terms of saving the fuel and working to the end of this race. We'll find out. 21 cars left on the lead lap, and they are split by 10 seconds. I don't want to say it's anyone's race, Lewis, but if you're on the lead lap, you've put yourself into the equation.
Well, that was a bit of a later move from Trainer there, going down into one, but yeah, you're never satisfied, are you? Goodness. I wouldn't say it's anyone's race. I certainly would. Not at this point. I know obviously there's a few people that can rise to the order, but there are quite a few now, but I'd be thinking, no. To be perfectly honest, most drivers below 5th, I'm starting to really question right now. It's hard to move up the order. Certainly more than, 5 or 6 spots. I know we've got a lot of time left to go. A lot will come down to that final pit window, because that's the only way that a few of those drivers further down might be able to throw their way back up into this race, is by making an earlier stop. But right now, I mean, to be perfectly honest, can you really see anyone outside of the top 4 doing it?
To be fair, the top 4 have been the most strong cars consistently through the race here, Joey.
I'm trying to think about some of those drivers below the top 5. Malechka, I still have my eye on him.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can't keep my eye off Phil Kraus. I don't know what he's going to be able to do. I don't know how he's going to be able to make up those 3 seconds to get within touching distance of the top 5. But I can't let him go. I can't get him out of my mind. And I feel like there's some sort of shenanigans that's going to happen here once the pit cycle comes around at about 15 lap time, because we've seen so many mistakes on pit entry, especially from drivers in the high pressure position of being in the lead of the race, but there are still so many variables that can still happen here.
David Porcelli rolls to pit lane, likely to drop a lap down as a result of that one, but the Satellite Racing driver, at least guaranteed as it sits right now, for top 22 finish with 44 laps to go. Bright yellow of Hugo Olsen sitting in a good spot to go back to back, but there are plenty of other drivers that want to rob him of that opportunity. Now, as Traino continues to go back and forth, there is a bit of a gap starting to build here, Lewis. Back to Jesper Orman.
Yeah, that's why we're saying the top 4. Whilst Orman's starting to struggle, same with Coogan. Malechka, I do agree, by the way, with Jay. I think Malechka's had an incredible day. Whilst it says down 3 positions, we know that's not the real story. Up, not far off 30. That is the real story for Malechka, but I just don't think there's enough pace. And certainly with the gap growing between Demerit and Orman, it's a solid no. I will say one thing that's really changed the circuit recently. You can kind of tell it's a lot darker now. That's not because the sun's setting. That's because the partly cloud has really got involved, and we've got a touch of cloud coverage, which has cooled the track temperature down a few degrees. Now, what that's going to do is very, very quickly, it's changed the balance of the car. Now, a lot of drivers are quite good at reacting very, very quickly. Unfortunately, some other drivers, it takes them a couple laps to be like, oh, not quite there, not quite there. Oh, there we go. Now I've got the I've got that dialed in. Just takes a couple laps. Like I say, the track temperature can change very, very quickly, but that cloud coverage will roll in and roll out quite a few times before now and the end of the race.
And it drops 6 or 7 degrees quite quickly, and we always say you got to be proactive with your tools, not reactive, which I know I had the awful tendency of being quite reactive. On board with the...
touched them.
Sorry?
I should never touch them.
Oh, fair.
That smells bad.
On board with the fabulous mustache of Kevin Burrell, as we look behind him, you've got Bennett, Krause and Newsom, 3 of the stalwarts of this iRacing community, IndyCar community, and I think we should just take a second here, Joey, to appreciate the glorious facial hair on Kevin Burrell, who is, as you can see behind, getting ready for a move to Japan, where unfortunately racing will go on the back burner for the next, I guess, couple of years.
He's got a very nice view in the background because he has the most aggressive driver in the top 13 right now, and Phil Krause constantly attacking Henry Bennett, and that means that Henry's never really able to get to the back of Kevin Burrell and really do anything to fight with him, because Kevin's got a huge gap ahead of him. Well, not huge, it's about 1.5 seconds up to Brophy, but Burrell's essentially in clean air. He's almost in clean air. If it was just Bennett behind Burrell, I think Bennett might be able to attempt to go for a move, but because Bennett has Phil Krause constantly attacking him in turn 2, in turn 4, places where you don't normally see overtakes get done, they're just slowing each other down.
I don't want to call this race a procession, but this is just the current state of how racing works at Indianapolis, even in the real world. The one thing that we haven't seen today with this new configuration of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, at least just yet, Lewis, but is the Christopher Demerit line, where basically he says, you know what, I want to run all the way up against the wall. He's been content to just run down low and save fuel for 160 laps so far, basically.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens on the final stint. We're approaching it. In about 9 laps' time, we'll see those final pit stops properly begin. And from that point on, I think you'll see people being a lot less patient. You're just waiting for your time to attack. You're waiting for the right times. Yeah, some that have actually looked after their tyres potentially a little bit more throughout this stint. They'll be closing in on the time that they want to attack, that they want to move forward. So we might see quite a few moves coming into this pit stop sequence, and then generally through the entire final stint, because for a lot of these drivers, it really is now or never if you want to be on top here at the Brickyard.
I think it's now or never now as well,
yeah,
because we're entering into the pit stop cycle where if you put yourself into a bad situation entering into pit lane, it's very hard for the pit cycle to save you. So you get your track position now, you make the time up now, and the fact that Phil Krause finds himself 7.5 seconds off your race leader, and knock on wood, we go caution free, you can only pull so much magic out of your hat, Joey, to be able to close that gap.
Yeah, eventually you just start kind of losing hope. I think he's probably still got a little bit of hope left in there, a little bit of hope left in the old brain. But once the pit cycle comes around, if we don't get a caution and you're like 8 seconds off the lead, eventually you just got to become complacent with your position. You don't really think you're going to be able to move forward at all anymore. And Krause, I think, is feeling the effects of his tire aggressiveness right now, because he's been attacking Henry Bennett since this stint started. He's been diving into the inside, like I said, in turn 2 and turn 4. Whenever he gets the run, it never works for him, though. He constantly has to back out of it. He can't get the run down any of the straights. And you can tell he's definitely struggling tire-wise because of that.
Burrell is fast enough to frustrate both Bennett and Krause, who have setups that are capable of running at the front. It goes to illustrate just how fine the margins are as Krause sends it to the inside, but just does not have the grip to make it work. Moments away from that pit stop window opening, maybe 2 or 3 laps. If I had to go in, I don't want to come in before there are 32 laps left to go, Lewis.
Yeah, if I'm honest, I know obviously it's pushing it a little bit late, but certainly if I'm like Traino Blocker, I'm up there, I'm waiting for there to be 30 laps. So you really know that you're pretty safe and that you've got that fuel in the tank that you can attack. If not, you can be spending the first portion of that final stint in someone else's slipstream, sucking on their tailpipe, trying to basically save the fuel that you need to go on the attack later on. It's really like I said, it's really not an easy part of the race, but you need to get to about 30 to go. They've been switching quite consistently between the two of them. But I don't know about you, I was saying it earlier, for me, this is definitely a maximum of a 4-horse race. It's Traino, it's Blocker, Olsen is definitely there for the race victory, and Demerit is just hanging on. Below that, Orman, Coogan, Malechka, I think below that, genuinely, right now, unless they do something magical through that final pit stop, I'm thinking everyone else is going to start ticking themselves off. They're not going to be a part of this final showdown unless there is a caution. One caution to change the course of history in this race. Who knows?
And based on what we saw in the first half, it might not just be the one caution. Let's talk motivations, though, through the field. Brandon Traino, King of the Bricks, already has his spot in the iRacing history books well and truly locked in. However, this month of May did not go the way that he wanted, searching for yet more history. He is here for redemption, and that includes making up for a mistake at the Open Wheels Grand Prix 2 weeks ago. Adam Blocker has been so close to a major Indy 500 win, but it has never been there. It has been just beyond his grasp. That is what he is looking for here today. Hugo Olsen, well, he wants to defend the throne that he inherited in 2020 with a statement victory, while Christopher Demerit has been the quiet car so far, but waiting in the wings with so much experience and a wealth of knowledge to fall back on. He will calculate his way to the very end. 4 drivers full of motivation, and Joey, the reality is in this IndyCar community, there are always tensions inflamed between the major 3 teams.
And tensions might inflame as this Blocker Traino battle right now, it's easy going right now. Blocker, when he peeks to the inside of Traino, Traino's not fighting it too hard. He can basically just let Adam go by because he knows they're just switching back and forth right now. They can afford to do that. But once we get into the later stages of this next run, when it gets to 10 laps to go, 5 laps to go, Traino and Blocker are not going to be quite as nice to each other. They're not going to be leaving as much room, and things are going to start getting a little bit more aggressive. And then if you're the likes of Hugo Olsen behind, you're probably going to be happy about that because that's more opportunity for them to check each other up. That's frankly more opportunity for them to take each other out and open the door. And that's when the real pressure cooker stuff starts.
I'm just glad we're not going 3 wide at the front of the field inside of the opening 15 laps like we did in May, because regardless of which side you came down on in that incident, Lewis, I think the line in the middle is it was just a shame that it happened that early and took out some major contenders.
Yep, like I say, it was a pretty big and dramatic moment for Brandon Traino. And you know, he wants to make amends for it. Like I say, whichever side of that battle you were on, outside that 3 wide, it wasn't pretty. It wasn't fun, and it kind of started that race in a not great way, removing a couple of the big contenders. We've not had, thankfully, anything major like that today. Everyone's been, to be honest, on pretty good behaviour. I know we've had a few sillier moments, we've had a few crazy moments, but most of what we've seen when it comes to the cautions, it's been single car incidents, been people pushing a little bit too hard. I'm okay with those. I am okay with it because it's kind of, I don't know the drivers.
It happens.
But like I say, those happen. We've not had, to be honest, aside from like a couple of little bits as Traino comes in, we've not had anything that's been crazy that I've pointed the finger at and been like, that is ridiculous, that is out of order. Everything's been pretty above board and on the books.
Yep, I 100% agree, and even though we've had more cautions than we've ever had in an Open Wheels 500, it still feels like a race where it's just everyone has been pushing so hard because of the return of this event. So Traino blinks, coming to 29 to go. Blocker, Olsen, Demerit will try and extend just that little bit further. But again, Joey, the limiting factor here isn't the amount of fuel that they're going to put on the cars. It's just going to be about how long it takes for the tire changers to get 4 fresh Firestone boots onto these Dallara IR18s. So hitting your marks is going to be crucial. Adam Blocker cannot afford another mistake on pit entry.
There is another heavy lockup again. He's got it slowed down. I don't think he'll get a speeding penalty for that, but that is another critical thing. That pit entry is, there's a critical couple of tenths in there, and with that lockup from Blocker, he might have over-slowed himself a little bit, and that might be 1 or 2 tenths that determines the difference between him getting out ahead of Traino or getting out behind him Here is Treno coming through. He's warming up his tires. Every other driver looks like they're going to wait one more lap. Actually, some drivers at the back of the field, Marquez and Welker specifically, I wanted to mention them because they're in that window where if they pit, they're in danger of going a lap down here to race leader Hugo Olsen. So that's the risk that they have to take. It looks like they're going to stay out ahead of him, though. They won't go a lap down, and they won't get trapped if the caution comes out.
Treno will grab back the race lead. Olsen's in demerit, stays out one lap longer. Undercut definitely the way to go just because the tires are giving up the ghost, and Treno shows the benefit of getting fresh boots onto the car. The margin between Blocker and Treno is over 1.3 seconds. He's blown himself clear of those behind.
Yeah, and it's at the point where the slipstream's certainly not going to be too much in effect. It might just be enough. The final coattails of that slipstream, it all kind of depends on where Olsen's going to come out in all of this. If he comes out again, as we've seen before, if it was a slow stop from Blocker and whatnot, if he comes out between, that is going to really help Blocker just get that final little push back up to the rear end of Treno. But right now, it's the Treno show.
It is going to, though, be one power slide, one i5G/Apex car up against two power slide cars, unless Christopher Demerit is able to nail this execution of the perfect green flag pit stop, Joey. And maybe there has never been more pressure on Demerit's shoulder than this, because leaving Treno up against two teammates would be a bit of a one-sided fight, potentially.
It looks like Demerit's going to go around one more time, as is Malechka, as are a bunch of these drivers in the lead of the race. They are going to go until the very end of this fuel tank, until they can't go any further, because they are hoping for a caution to come out. They're hoping that they'll be able to put on fresher tires than everybody else who just pitted. There'll only be 2 or 3 laps fresher, so they won't be much help, but still, when you're in a position like that, you need to go for something alternate. Malechka does come in this lap, and all those drivers who are a lap down, by the way, I didn't expect Newsom and Burrell and Akabuizi and Welker to go a lap down, but they have, so they're really hoping that this caution doesn't come out, and they can get Demerit to come in to give them their lap back.
Demerit is on to lap 33. Malechka will hit his marks. Missed the initial race start. Had to start at the back after qualifying inside of the front 2 rows. He has managed to fight his way back into contention, but as he drops and rolls, releases himself from the limiter, it's just simply not going to be close enough. Already they blow themselves on pass, and Malechka's going to be lucky to even be within sniffing reach of Jesper Orman.
Just how it goes. Like I say, he's had a long day. I will say Malechka's had a great day, completely missing the race start, but still managing to get in the race, still managing to be a part of it, still managing to put on a great show for us. So thank you for that. But like I say, just way off the rear end of Orman. The rest of them coming into the pit lane. Treno and Blocker, though, very, very close. Olsen a part of it as well. It really is going to be a 3-car fight for the race lead.
And they're 3 wide into turn number 1. Treno has to concede. It's now power slide net 1 and 2. But where does Demerit cycle out in all of this? He's still trying to get up to speed on the access road. Power slide, grab control of the race with 24 laps to go, Joey.
I don't think Treno conceded there. I think he was forced there because he was desperately trying to stick to the inside. He made contact with Hugo Olsen, I think, in the middle of the track. And again, he's going to fade up. He has to lift out of it. The car gets very, very loose. Treno has been running in clean air for so long that I don't think he expected that level of aero wash there. And Hugo Olsen was very, very lucky that didn't end in complete disaster.
Brandon's dad says, quit counting the king of the bricks out, and we're not trying to count him out. We're just looking at the reality of the situation with 15 minutes to go and 2 teammates in control of this race with all the pit stops now in the books. The complexion of this race has shifted in the direction of Powerslide Motorsports, Lewis.
Yeah, certainly not counting Brandon Treno. We know his experience around here, and also I would quite like to be right twice in one day. So that's obviously my ego getting the better of me. But Brandon Treno is an incredible talent when it comes to racing around here. But you're absolutely right. He's got it stacked up against him a little bit. This is the 3 wide look once again, and like you say, just squeezed down a touch, and they both came through the Powerslide cars, Olsen and Blocker. Brilliant stuff. They now make it the 1-2, and Brandon Treno started thinking, like, right, how do I get past just one of you? Because that's the important bit, is that you're never going to clear. You're not going to clear both of them in one straight. But if you can get past one, if you can get between them, that's where you can start affecting something. So watch this. As soon as they switch, the more that happens, the more Treno is going to try and follow that switch through. He's trying to affect a pass in the middle of that switch, and he needs to.
Jesper Orman has cycled in front of Christopher Demerit, so Demerit tried whatever he was trying. It has just not cycled out in his way. You can see the separation to Malechka, though. If there's going to be a winner under green flag conditions, likely it will come from the top 3. But if there's any bit of shenanigans, Orman, Demerit are there to pick up the pieces. Again, it feels like deja vu back to 2020. Yes, Olsen's there. Blocker wasn't racing on that occasion. It was Costantini instead of Treno representing Apex Racing and i5G, but once again, it's 2 Power Slide cars up against 1 i5G machine, Joey, and any thought about how good the race cars have been over the course of the previous 180 laps go out the window now, because it is a totally different race.
And Blocker and Olsen right now, as teammates, they're not racing each other especially hard right now. They know there's only 20 laps to go. They know the track position matters, but they're thinking about Treno right now, and they're on defense mode, as if they can continue to switch spots here, if Olsen and Blocker can just trade the lead and not let Treno get in, that'll give them both the optimal chance to be able to fight for the win when we get to that critical moment of about 5 laps to go when these moves are actually going to matter. But you can see Hugo's lifting out just a little bit. He's not fighting as hard as he could, because he's thinking about the long game. He's thinking about keeping himself alive for the win, and he knows he has to make a few sacrifices right now to be in it later. Was
that Treno off the wall, or was that just my eyes deceiving me?
I think it's your eyes deceiving you.
Yeah, I think it was okay.
Okay, I don't... again, I put the question out there because it has been a long morning, but Treno's car does not look like the same car that it was when he was part of the front 2 leapfrogging back and forth. Olsen had experience of that. Blocker had experience of that. How are the tires? Sorry, Lewis. How are the tires playing out right now? Because if Treno is just sitting back and thinking, I'll try with 10 to go, with 5 to go, maybe there's something he's got in mind. I don't see how it's going to happen, though, naturally, unless he forces the issue.
I mean, being the third car, you don't really want to be the third car, because as much as you're getting a double slipstream, when they're switching, when they're doing it perfectly, it can be frustrating. You can see at the moment, Brandon Treno not showing really any of that frustration. It's pretty calm and stoic at the moment. I think in 18 laps time, if he remains in this position, it'll be slightly less calm and slightly less stoic. But like I say, you've got to accept it as it is. Right now, the race certainly isn't over. A little bit of pressure on the shoulders coming in from Demerit. But also, remember that these two, whilst they are teammates, they're probably teammates for about the next 15 laps. The moment that ends, it's every man for themselves. And trust me, that's where Treno might get his opportunity.
It will be like being a mercenary / pirate at that point. Everyone will indeed be out for yourselves. We saw that with the 3 wide with i5G teammates back in May. I have no doubt it will be something similar. Like Lewis alluded to, Demerit has closed up and he has not brought Orman with him. So the Indy Alliance Racing number 3 in danger of being left in no man's land and maybe being dragged backwards towards Malechka, Kugan, Oster and Kinsella, who will battle for what is 6th through 9th positions. An exciting 16-lap shootout still left in front of us, Joey. Demerit may be the wild card. We haven't seen the Demerit line come into vogue so far. Has he been waiting to play it at the end?
I don't know if he'll be able to do the Vogue up there on the top and use it again on this new scan. There he goes. He peeks up to the outside to get into a little bit of clean air behind Treno. Not quite running as high as we would expect him, though. He's still just rolling in the line here behind Treno. Here's 2 drivers who are teammates in the back of or in the middle of the field, rather, right now. Phil Kraus, who didn't actually get a pit lane speeding penalty. It looked like it might be likely that he did, but he's fine. He got away with it. He's trying to tow his teammate Brophy ahead. They've got about 5 seconds up to Kinsella, but they're doing everything they can to bring it
Treno
down.
had a big issue off of 2. Big issue off of 2.
I did hear Lewis going, ooh, and I knew it was attention drawing me somewhere. I just didn't know where. So now it is Power Slide 1 and 2. It's Demerit that inherits the mantle of the i5G representative. We'll grab a look at what happened, but Lewis, big drama then here at IMS.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of the best catches I have seen. Absolutely monster slide through 2. We'll see it here. I mean, just watch him. It starts sliding quite early, a little bit too low, brushing the curb. There it goes.
My day.
Just catches it. That is impressive.
How ironic that was a power slide.
Nice. Yeah, Lewis, you see there's a reason why I got Joey, because I wouldn't just get irritated with you, I'd get irritated at his puns as well. Treno's tires likely screaming out. He's behind Orman. It's all on Demerit's shoulders as we wind closer and closer to 10 to go. We check in with Malechka, Coogan, and Kinsella. And I'll just shout out here, Joey, the run for Shane Coogan, a true privateer. Qualified down in the field, has been having a slow but steady day and is on course for a top 10 finish in his debut in the Open Wheels 500.
Yeah, I remember I wasn't tuned in for the qualifying for too long. I was very, very busy, but I do remember seeing Shane Coogan's run, and he put it P21 in the field. That's still 21st. It's in the bottom third of the field, if my math is correct there, but that's still a great run for a privateer. Maybe one of the top privateers in the field in qualifying, and he has just driven his way forward very, very silently. We haven't said his name very much, but honestly, tonight, or this afternoon, that's probably a good thing that we haven't said your name very much, because that means you haven't gotten any trouble, and the number 6 is in P7.
Cloud cover's gotten heavier. At least it looks visually darker, even if the track temperature hasn't necessarily changed. Still hovering at around 51 degrees Celsius. So the gap between Demerit and Orman, 1.7. Orman and Traino have not worked together to try and swap back and forth to close. So, like I said, the moments that Lewis brought our attention to Traino's slide, it's all on Demerit's shoulders. And he's still running those same lines. Usually with Demerit, I'm so used to him, Lewis, going up high that it's just like, oh, he's gone down low, that's the surprise. It feels a very, very different atmosphere compared to what we saw in May.
Yeah, it's like I say, maybe he's going to start using it later on. Maybe he's content. Maybe the setup that they've got doesn't really feel that great, going higher than the standardised line around here at Indianapolis. All I know is that there is not very long left in this race. It really is the top 3 that are battling it out: Olsen, Blocker, and Demerit. I think Orman and Traino a bit too far of it. 1.5 seconds back to Orman, and of course the 3/10 back to Traino. It's between these 3, and there we go, going a little bit higher, just trying to build the speed up. It's normally through 2 where we see that outside line. You're trying to use it there, so you're punching into a much, or 2 and 4, where you're getting a much better run onto the straight. But right now, like I say, not using it, just in 1 and 3.
Yeah, I think a lot of this is our first experimentation and trying to understand this track as well. So, and what's changed, I think that's the big thing, right? Because, Joey, I'm sure a lot of these teams use the baselines that they had out of May coming into this event. I have no doubt as well that it is a very different setup to what they started with all those weeks ago.
It's different, and it's been adjusted over the course of the race as well. So if you're not completely perfect right now, if you're not completely satisfied with your car, well, you're kind of out of luck, because you're running out of time here. There's only 10 laps to go. That was very, very close in turn 1 between Blocker and Olsen. We've reached that critical moment where you've got to stop being teammates. You got to start fighting each other for the win, and you could see that both of them are leaving each other a little bit less room. They're not backing out as much as they did initially, because they want to get that track position, and they want to line themselves up to be in the optimal spot to be able to do that leapfrog on the last lap.
Remember that the tires for all 3 of these drivers will be at the end of the run by the time we get to that final lap of the race. Demerit will have a 4-lap advantage, though, compared to Blocker. So maybe that is something to factor in as well. But it's not shaping up as though he's got an opportunity. So let's focus in on 1 and 2, who have been going back and forth. Lewis coming to the white flag with 2.5 miles to go. Do you want to lead? Do you want to be in second?
This is the thing, it's not easy. Realistically, all I know is that around here you want to be leading off of 4, because everyone's like, oh, the big drag race line. If you nail 4, likely it is you're probably not going to be passed. Whoa, hello, that was a big moment. Was that Oster?
It was indeed.
That'll wake you up for the final 8 laps to go. But yeah, you want to be leading off of 4, because the drag race you should have the run to do it, which means you've really got to make the move into 3. But that move into 3, it's possible to block it and to not worry about it too much. Honestly, I don't know. I think I'd want to lead the final lap.
Oh, you want to lead at the line? Interesting.
Yeah.
Joey?
I don't want to lead at the line, but I don't necessarily want to be in second either, because that puts Demerit behind me. That gives him a chance to attack potentially. And also, you can never really guarantee that you'll be able to get the run that you need to actually make the move. So, That's always the dilemma. That's why it's hard to fight for these things, because you think you want to be in second, you want to get that optimal line, you think that's the way to take the lead, but if one thing goes wrong and you can't take the lead, you're going to feel stupid if you didn't take it a lap earlier.
So my thoughts are that Olsen wants to lead at the line, and I say this based on Olsen's questions in our pre-race driver meeting, where he was very specific in that he wanted to understand the rules of moving and weaving to break toes. But with my relationship with Hugo being his teammate, I knew that he really meant what happens on those final laps if I'm fighting for the lead. He wanted to know how far he could go, what he could do, because he is willing to lay it on the line to grab not just the small prize money from the purse that is available for this event, but of course as well, there is, I think, the more significant prize to many of the drivers, Lewis, which is that custom engraved bottle of milk, which is waiting in my kitchen to be dispatched wherever in the world our winner may be.
Yeah, not a winner in the commentary booth then.
No, definitely not.
Like I say, it's the reason why I genuinely would want to lead on the line, because like I say, you can defend, you can do something about it, whereas when you're second and you're like, I have to make a move, I have to go around the outside or make a move to the inside going into turn 3 particularly, it's not an easy one. The thing is, like I say, there is a right decision and a wrong decision, and right now if you're trying to force that decision, you're trying to force your hand and try and be in the right spot, the likelihood is it might blow up in your face, and so you've got to be careful with that. Demerit's starting to run that higher line a few more times, I've noticed now, coming into at least turn 3.
Setting up.
Yeah, I think maybe, like you say, building himself up. Maybe I wouldn't count Demerit out just yet.
I think more interestingly, though, what he's doing into 1 is backing out and popping out of the draft. I think he is just setting up for those final laps. He's got something in mind. That is without a shadow of a doubt. Under 4 to go now as we wind out of turn 2. There is a bit of traffic up the road. That is Evan Adams, who is on the leading lap for the time being. I think he will be just up the road enough to not play a factor and not to give any dirty air to the two teammates who continue to go back and forth as we wind now to 3 laps to go, Joey, to round out this month of November.
Evan's about 3 seconds up the road there. Hugo and Blocker are only about 4/10 a lap faster than Evan every lap around. So do you do the math? That means they're probably not going to catch him. There might be a little bit of dirty air come that last lap, but other than that, it's going to be 1v1v1, Blocker v Olsen v Demerit. Again, you see Demerit in turn 1 trying to go a little bit wide, trying to set something up down the back straight here. Unfortunately, he's just running into that dirty air wall. He's running into the dirty bubble. He's stuck about 3/10 behind both of these guys. But as they continue to get even more aggressive, as they continue to go side by side even more throughout the lap, Demerit's just waiting for the door to open.
We are past the point of no return. The next flag will end the race. And at this point, with 5 miles to go, is it between the two at the front of the field? This event that Tanner Watkins started back in 2019 is back in your lives. Tanner is watching somewhere on his honeymoon. We congratulate him on his marriage just last weekend. But 2 trips around IMS left with the victory and the glory on the line, Lewis.
Yeah, Hugo Olsen nearly into the barrier then, coming on the exit of 2. They are no longer teammates, ladies and gentlemen. They are battling between each other. Olsen takes over the race lead into 3. Demerit sat there waiting. Is his opportunity now? White flag's about to be waved. Who is going to be on top?
2.5 miles to go. 700 plus days later, Hugo Olsen is in contention once more, but it comes down to the next 4 corners. His teammate Adam Blocker will look to the inside, but the defending champion has it covered for now, Joey.
I wonder if that was a little bit too early of a move from Blocker. He's going to fall off the back here off of 2. He almost gets into the wall and has to completely check up. I don't think he's going to have enough time to bring this gap down into turn 3. I think going for that move into 1 was too early, and that might have just won Hugo Olsen this race.
Brandon Traynor was dropped behind Robert Malechka as well. 1 more corner to be perfect for Hugo Olsen. What a story it has been. He broke onto the scene, winning this event in 2020, and 2 years later, Hugo Olsen conquers the Indianapolis Motor Speedway once more to crown himself the open wheels 500-mile champion in 2022, and to put forward his candidacy for the best that iRacing IndyCar has to offer, Lewis.
stealing the King of the Bricks. I think he'll be around that area because Brandon Traino drops down to 6th spot, wasn't able to challenge for the victory. Olsen doing it again. I mean, he's showing that he is the man for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Absolutely sensational. And now I might not have been right on the Traino thing, but was right on leading going into that final lap. Olsen played that brilliantly. And I completely agree with what Joey was saying. I think Blocker went for it just too early. If he'd have waited, not tried to make a move into 1 and 2, waited until turn 3, that might have been the opportunity. But when you have it staring in your face, you feel you'd feel silly if you didn't at least try.
Maybe Traino is the king of May, but Olsen is putting forward a case to be the king of November, and hopefully it's not another 2 years before we go again, Joey, but Hugo Olsen will retain hold of that crown as the Open Wheels 500-mile race champion for at least another 12 months.
Yeah, I wish I studied up. I wish I knew how to say congratulations in Swedish. I only know how to say lycka till, which is good luck, and that's a little bit late, but look at this power slide armada coming down here to the bricks. A very good result for them either way. Clearly, Blocker's not too unhappy about it. He's still here to congratulate his teammate, Malechka, and the whole rest of the gang, Kinsella and Bennett. They're going to try and organize each other. Hopefully they got a photographer to tell them to line things up, but what a moment.
It's okay, Elliot Roberts will be behind the scenes grabbing some pictures.
Lots of photos.
Yeah, lots of pictures. The rest of the drivers will clear the field and allow the King of November to burn it down once more. It is Hugo Olsen that will kiss the bricks and celebrate as the 2022 Open Wheels 500-mile race champion. And to think he wasn't sure at one point if he would be a part of the field. Let's grab a look at your unofficial OpenWheels.com race results. Half a second the margin at the end. Both Joey and Lewis think it was Adam Blocker going for the move 3 corners too early that compromised him and cost him a chance of victory. Christopher Demerit rounds out the podium for Team i5G with the Apex Racing team. 2 years on from his breakout performance, Jesper Orman does it again, up into 4th, leading the charge for the Indy Alliance Racing program. Robert Malechka jumping in front of Brandon Traino at the death. A big slide, at the very least. Traino wins the best save of the month of November. Shane Coogan, the best of the privateer entries, representing Team GDC with race first. Oster, Kinsella, 8th and 9th, while Phil Kraus, after his issue on pit lane entry and the speeding penalty, is able to at least recover a top 10 finish on the day. It will be Jason Brophy in 11th in his private label Team Hype number 88, in front of Alexis Newsom for the Team i5G with Apex Racing team, Hamilton Akabueze, and then Kevin Burrell and Andrew Marquez. Bookend the top 15 with Mitch Welker, Nagisa Yoshikawa, Seb Alexander, and Evan Adams all finishing on the lead lap. Plenty of those drivers taking advantage of the chaos and carnage around them. Not sure what happened to Henry Bennett to be scored as 1 lap down at the very end of the day, but he's in front of David Porcelli. AJ Musselman nursed damage to be 4 laps down come the checkered, while Brian Carey starts the graveyard of retirees, where Josh Chin, Dylan Freckleton, Alex Van der Sant, Josh Tucker, Matt Holliber, Brendan Lichtenberg, Adam Crane, and then Rashad Craig, Marco Brazil, and Craig Forsyth round out the field. Michael Chin was our 3rd of the scheduled alternates, not needed as a part of our field here today. There is Hugo Olsen, still celebrating on the yard of bricks. We'll give him a moment to come and join us here live in the RaceSpotTV commentary box. Another 500 miles done, Lewis, and another 3 and a bit hours with me. A very interesting race that sometimes felt like a procession.
Yeah, like I said, they were single file for quite a bit of it. Not too many. There were a lot of switches for the race lead, but you know, it was all playing the fuel mileage game. But Hugo Olsen doing it again and coming out on top. The only bit of Swedish, by the way, that I know, because I know Joe was saying his, it's Fladamus, which means bat. The only reason why I know that is because it directly translates to flappy mouse, which I think is hilarious. Love Swedish. What a language.
I mean, I guess I also have köttbullar, which is Swedish meatballs, but other than that, I'm out of luck.
We're very fluent in this commentary booth.
We do have an international commentary booth. We've got Lewis from the UK, Joey from the US, and then me, you know, well, I can technically represent 3 countries if we really wanted to, so we'll figure it out. I tell you what, though, let's not dawdle any longer. Let's head straight down to Victory Lane, where Hugo Olsen is standing by once more. Hugo, you have done it again. This time it came down all the way to the wire. What were you thinking coming into the month of November again with the crown on your head? See if we can try that again. Hugo Olsen, do you have a copy? We hear the clicks, but we don't hear Hugo talking. So we'll give him a few moments' time and see if we can drag in our race winner. Instead, let's start then from the third step of the podium, where Christopher Demerit is standing by. He's chatting with Joey Tebben.
Well, Mr. Christopher Demerit, that was crazy stuff in those past couple of laps. You were in that third spot. What more do you think you needed to bring down that Olsen and Blocker armada?
I just needed them to fight out more. Adam was doing a great job playing rear gunner and not giving me any lane. When I went high, he would go high. When I went low, he went low. So that's pretty much all I needed. Or I needed to be in clean air, which that restart didn't go well when Adam bombed it in. But the car was pretty good. Just needed a little bit more.
Talk us through those past couple of laps, because we especially noticed you were going for some alternate lines. We saw you peek to the inside on the front straight, swerve back to the outside in turn 1. What were you thinking? Were you just trying to throw anything at it and hope something stuck? Yeah,
I was trying to cool the tires down a little bit just at the end. I had a little bit of a tire advantage, and I feel like I probably used it up by the end of the race. It didn't help that we caught a lap car draft at the end, so we just kind of got pulled around for the last few laps. Yeah, I was just trying to go for anything I could. I was hoping something would happen in front of me to be able to capitalize on it.
So P3 in qualifying on the outside of the front row, P3 in the race. Of course, it's not the victory, but I'm sure you're still pretty satisfied with the performance and being the top i5G driver in the month of November. Yeah, it was pretty good. I am disappointed, of course. You know, you're at the front so much, and P3 is a little sour. But yeah, it was a good race. Trino drove really well. He was just trying to push way too hard at the end, but I mean, you got to go for it, so I can't blame him. Trino deserved to finish in front of me. All right, well, congrats on P3 again, and I guess we'll see you here again in May. Yeah, thank you. Christopher Demerit, P3 tonight, or this afternoon. It feels like it's tonight. It's not tonight yet. I can only imagine it's even more so for Arjuna, but I think we got Adam Blocker next.
Yeah, Adam Blocker, second place on the day. The move tried into turn 1 on the final lap. He's standing by with the one and only Lewis McLeod.
Yeah, I think we should talk immediately about that move. You gave it a good go going down into the first corner. In the commentary, we said we might think it's a little bit too early. Did you think it was too early? Do you kind of regret trying it into turn 1? Do you kind of feel maybe you should have waited for later on in the lap?
No, if anything, I should have went earlier, as in I should have defended inside a lap earlier, because the problem was we were catching the lap car of Evan Adams, and I was estimating that we wouldn't catch him by the front on the next lap, and then we did, and that's what screwed me. But that was the only move I had, because if I had stayed behind through 1 and 2, I had arrow wash from 2 cars ahead, and I was just done. So.
Well, talk us through like the positives and negatives of the day. Obviously, ignoring the final lap there, pace looks really, really good. You were working quite well with Hugo earlier on in the race. Obviously, fending off the likes of Trino and whatnot, and that 3-wide pass to get past Trino was absolutely brilliant. There's a lot of positives to take from this race, surely.
Oh yeah, overall the race is super positive. You know, as one of the team leaders of Powerslide and one of the members of Powerslide, you know, this race just makes me really proud of all the work we did. You know, both on track in the race, all the setup and testing we did, especially the guys. You know, without me there I wasn't able to be involved as much as I usually was, but you know, the guys, especially Hugo, put in a lot of work to make the setup really good. And you know, even up until the last second, Andrew and I made some what I thought were really good changes this morning that really kind of took our setup to the next level in traffic. So yeah, I just really want to thank all those guys. But yeah, in the race, I mean, there was a couple critical moments. There was one moment I think I did a late move on the entry to 3 on Trino and Demerit. Trino and I almost crashed, but we made it through. But that kind of broke up the Demerit and Trino stranglehold on the race. And that allowed Hugo to get up to 3rd. And then eventually, yeah, when we got new tires, Hugo and I were talking in Discord, how do we both get past them at the same time? And Hugo came up with a plan, and we both executed it really well. I just cleared Trino, and yeah, we were set from there.
Wow, I mean, you've been someone that's been so busy on the build up to this, and a great result to take from it. Adam, cheers for joining us, and congratulations on 2nd place.
Yeah, also can't leave out. Want to thank Arjuna for taking over this event and continuing to run it. It was a really good event once again, and yeah, hopefully we can do it again in the future.
Adam Blocker.
Awesome.
Not only trying to make me feel happy, but I will say, I don't want to spoil the news, Adam Blocker has had a very successful year in the real world in 2022, and glad to see him getting some results on track after what has been somewhat of a tough year. We drag in, though, finally his teammate Hugo Olsen, who I've been told is standing by loud and clear. Hugo first, let's check. How you doing?
Yeah, hello, Arjuna.
Hugo, Mr. Two-Time, how did you feel coming into this race in this month of November with the championship on your head and, you know, a little bit more pressure after the performance we saw from you in 2020?
Yeah, it was. I knew we had a good super speedway race package from beforehand, and yeah, the preparation for this year's event has just been to work on the small details on that, maximize everything. Yeah.
One thing that I can ask you, because I've seen, you know, your glimpse behind the scenes over the last 2 years. One thing that you have taken on the mantle of, as Adam Blocker has somewhat stepped back with his real-world commitments, is as an engineering focus and lead on the Powerslide team. How much has that been beneficial to you to develop yourself as a driver as well, understanding what the car does a little bit more?
Yeah, it's really helped doing many laps on these setups, adjusting everything, building it for my liking and getting to know exactly how it's going to handle in different conditions, how to use the in-car tools and all of that to maximize it and have as good of a car at the end as possible there.
I'll ask you one more question and then I'll let you go off and celebrate, but what makes this event different to the month of May for you, Hugo, especially as someone now that has been through all of it and come out on top twice?
Yeah, it's the biggest thing for me in sim racing and pretty much the biggest in iRacing, IndyCar sim racing, so yeah, it's an honor to both be able to drive for a big team as Powerslide Motorsports and also yeah, kind of lost for words here, but
I don't blame you, Hugo.
Yeah.
Don't worry.
Can't even remember the question.
You've got a bottle of milk that will be, well, a bottle for milk, empty of milk, that will be heading your way to put up against next to your 2020 title commemoration as well. Congratulations on another great run, Hugo, and hopefully it's not another 12 months.
I've had the milk bottle here from 2020. Unfortunately, I don't have a camera, so I can't connect with Zoom, but just letting everyone know that coming to good use here.
That's good to hear. Hugo Olsen off to kiss the outer bricks and to drink his milk. Let's quickly chat with Brandon Traino and talk about the race and the opportunities that he had. Brandon, let's talk about the end, though, very quickly, and the slide, and potentially the best save that we'll see all year.
Yeah, it was just me trying to push to generate some sort of run to force a 3-wide situation, but like I was just talking to the teammates, I don't think we could have raced a better race, in my opinion. Chris and I were up front all day and never really put a wheel wrong until obviously the slide, but that was just pushing too hard, trying to make something happen, which admittedly probably wasn't going to happen with the track temp, and I think Hugo and Adam were trimmed out a little bit, so a little bit of straightaway speed deficit there, which made it a little bit more difficult, but yeah, overall really good race from the team and super proud of what we brought here today.
I mean, you reflect on the year, Brandon. I think the main thing is, even though you may not walk away with the wins here in Indianapolis, the development that you've had over the last 12 months has shown your development on the road course and outside of the IndyCar as well. So what are you looking forward to now in 2023? Because I'm hoping you'll have a bit of an off-season over the next 6 or so weeks.
Yeah, again, it's credit to the Apex guys on the road side with Kev and Peter Berryman. They're the shoulder to lean on and always ask for advice, and we had a decent chat about what I could have done different in the Grand Prix 2 weeks ago and learned from that. But yeah, just really happy with how far I've come personally. Still got a couple things to work on. And admittedly, when I feel I'm losing control of a race, I start to just be over aggressive and make very silly mistakes. So working on that aspect. But yeah, off season, continue to try to grind some iRating and join some special events with the Apex Academy guys.
Sounds like maybe BMW LMDH Daytona January sounds like a plan. There's a smile on the face of the King of the Bricks. Congratulations, Brandon, on the performance over the course of the year. We'll see you next year back and ready for some more.
Yeah, thanks, Arjuna. Appreciate everything you do.
Brandon Traino joins us in the RaceSpotTV commentary booth. Have a couple more drivers still to talk to. Let's have a quick chat with Jesper Orman, and I want to talk about the journey from 2020 to 2022. Jesper, when we saw you break out November 2020, it was by yourself. Now you're leading an outfit and a team behind you, and you showed up with some teammates ready to play today.
Absolutely, for sure. That was a great run for me personally and for my spotter Gary. We had a lot of fun. It was a struggle, but yeah, for sure. I'm really proud of the team, what we achieved this Open Wheels 500 2022, and you guys put on the show on RaceSpot entire week. That was awesome.
How different has this been as an experience for you, Jesper? Now that you're established, you have knowledge of the car, and you've got teammates behind you as well. Has it been a little bit easier and a little less stressful in some ways?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the race set I'm running right now is basically a baseline that we had before, and Rashad and I, it's a combined effort. So we're pretty happy with this setup. I was hanging on by a thread, like, for the entire race, but that's how it goes when the track temp was so high. So yeah, did everything I could there, and it really helps with the team behind us, for sure.
Fourth on the road, you can be very proud of the progress over the last 2 years, and let's see what the next 12 months holds for you and the Indy Alliance racing program, Jesper. Congratulations on fourth.
Thank you. I'm very, very pleased. Thank you.
Jesper Orman will round out our post-race interviews as we get ready to wrap things up. Lewis, final thoughts, though, as we get ready to close out what's been a spectacular month of November. We had Adam Crane win the Open Wheels Grand Prix, and then we had Hugo Olsen go back-to-back in the Open Wheels 500.
Yeah, it's been like I say, great race. We had a bit of a caution train in the middle there, which, fair enough, that happens. I'm glad the caution train happened around the halfway point, slightly before the halfway point of the race, and not late on. It allowed the race to unfold naturally, to happen as it did, and we had a great end, a great finish, and, got to be said, a very, very deserving winner in Hugo Olsen. Did a fantastic job all day.
Joey, you were there for the Grand Prix. You were here for the 500 to close things off as well. What are you going to look forward to next year when we return to the racing capital of the world?
I mean, what can't I look forward to? It's just, as always, when we get 33 drivers, when we get the best IndyCar drivers on iRacing together for a race, sometimes there's calamity, sometimes there's drama, sometimes there's confusion, but it's always an incredible race. It's all because it was tonight, and I don't want to wait until May. I just want to do this again. Why can't we do it? Let's do it again in December. Let's do a Christmas 500.
I don't know. I think there's probably enough people that, as sad as it is to say, oh, done with Indianapolis for the rest of 2022. They'll be back in focus for the 2023 iRacing Indianapolis 500, but that is a long way away. For now, it is time to bring things to a close for this month of November. It's been a joy to be back alongside with Lewis McLeod and Joey Tebben. My name is Arjuna Kangipati, signing off on RaceSpotTV for the 2022 Open Wheels 500-mile race. The race will return next year as drivers try to prevent Hugo Olsen becoming Mr. 3-time in the month of November. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time here at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway on RaceSpotTV.